Holy cow. We're live. There we are. So, good morning. A wild card playoff game coming up today on Soup and Meatballs. The Wolverines travel out west, and what did you think you knew about Max? We'll find out today, and pull up a chair and hang out with Tim and myself. Tim, how are you this week?
I am mustachioed and glorious. How are you today?
I'm bearded, and it's gray because I haven't colored it in a while. Is your mustache red? It looks red.
I am surprisingly ginger. Like when I grow out the beard, I look like I should be sailing to Norway.
I don't know what mine looks like today. It's plus you're in a better lighting situation. I've often said this. I need a light, and we're on show 8. My goal is by show 20 to have some kind of lighting system down here, but it's.
But you have a nicer background. I'm in this like this random ether.
No, I don't think it's random. It's just blank. We got a. Who we got? Oh boy, my Dice Baseball League is texting away. They're super pumped about something we're going to talk about here in a little bit. So let's talk about it right now, I suppose. This is the time of year where the word playoffs are going to get some people angry. Whether it's the old school college football people who think that the regular season used to be a playoff, so last week's Alabama-Georgia Classic was like less of a classic. Or how about this? The Major League Baseball fans who I've seen online who get super upset because his or her team gets bounced out of the playoffs and they won a division, but they had to play a wild card game. So they feel somewhat wronged, right? So this week, wild card week, we saw a couple sweeps. San Diego bounced Atlanta 2-0. The Royals knocked off the Orioles. And the Astros, who had been to the American League Championship Series for 7 straight years, get bounced by the Tigers.
Bye.
So 2 things to start off, Tim. This is year 3 for this 6-team playoff format in Major League Baseball. Do you like this format?
I love it. And I think anyone who watched that Mets game where Pete Alonso went deep on Milwaukee, anything that gets people talking about baseball, anything that gets people watching baseball, I'm for. I love it. How about you? What do you think?
It's been 2 years since we've added the extra team. And I think what that has done largely is it's really changed the trade deadline, because now you could be a mid-level team and you still legitimately have a shot. Look no further than last year when Texas comes into the playoffs. I think they were a 5 seed, and Arizona comes into the playoffs. I think they were a 6. So you have a 5 over a 6 in the World Series. If you're somewhere around 7 or 8 in your league, you're not a seller anymore. And I think that's a good thing it's a bad thing for the Yankees because they used to go out and buy. But as far as baseball is concerned, yeah, I'm totally with you. I think that when you have that kind of excitement for teams down in the 6-7 range, where normally if you're 10 games out of first place, normally you'd be thinking, well, this was a good year. You still have a shot. And wild card, I keep calling it wild card weekend because of football, but like wild card week has shown us, especially last year when we got into the division round, where if you can get hot now, like Detroit, I don't want anything to do with Detroit. I am so glad New York has Kansas City, but even Kansas City, if you look at what they did to Baltimore had a pretty good offense. They scored 1 run in 2 games. And Kansas City didn't score a ton either, but like Kansas City and Detroit, neither one of them are like both of them are coming into the division series hot, which is not what you want to see if you're Cleveland or New York.
And I don't want to call myself Mr. Smarty Pants, but I feel like these playoffs have played out so far the way I felt they would, where it's low scoring, you can't depend on the long ball, and the way that Detroit is built for situational offensive baseball, station to station, get the big hit. You know,
Oh, when they got the really big hit, was it the eighth
off a
inning of game
hater.
two? Yeah, that was
Ibanez yanking
the
that one
camera
down
didn't
the
get a
left
really
field
good
line.
angle. The camera didn't get a good angle of that left field. Like you just had to rely on the umpires. Like, yeah, it's fair. There's not a lot of foul territory out there, so odds are good. I remember I'm sitting in the room watching the game. I have it on mute because I'm playing a game on my phone, and I'm just kind of watching. The next thing I'm like, oh my god, Houston has a lead. Oh, and part of it is Houston's been the nemesis of New York for a long time, and going back as far as the Jose Altuve's tattoo, that they're the team that I didn't want to see because I don't care how many people they've lost. It seemed like they were in New York's head. Right now, though, with Detroit being as hot as they are, if they dispatch of Cleveland, which I think they're going to, I think it's going to go 5. I think Cleveland is a better team, but Detroit's hot right now, so it's hard to bet against them. I think New York handles Kansas City. I think it goes 4, and then we have a hot hand versus New York. And if you look at, I was looking at the numbers today, getting ready, because you talk about low scoring games and bullpens, and I totally agree. New York, believe it or not, has a statistically better bullpen than Kansas City. That's shocking to me,
Me
especially over the
too.
last 20 games. Now, the numbers I looked at were the whole season, when Clay Holmes was actually not terrible. When he's had a rough year. He blew, I want to say 15 games, so I will. But the rest of their bullpen has been very makeshift. I almost got a call to pitch in their bullpen. They had so many injuries, and that's over the long haul, they have a better ERA, which is amazing to me.
Can I get a call to be in the bullpen? I'm ambidextrous, so I can, if they need a lefty or a righty, I'm a great situational reliever.
Yeah, there's no more such thing as situational. You got to go 3 batters.
Right. So, but
no more loogies.
If they're going to bring up a lefty or a righty, I'll just, I'll just switch gloves.
There you go. So, like I said, Houston, so you didn't want to call yourself Mr. Smarty Pants, but I'm going to go after you right now. So it's been 7 years since Houston has made the ALCS. Do you remember the ALCS the last time they weren't in it? I didn't. The year I remember the World Series, but I remember the Championship Series.
So we're going back to 2016?
Yep. So you'll probably know the World Series. That was a pretty big one.
Whew. I honestly don't know who was in the ALCS. I'm trying to think who was in the World Series in 16. It wasn't the Royals.
I remember
15
I remember
the
that
Royals
year
and Mets in the series.
That year I remember because the Yankees were big sellers, and they sent Andrew Miller to Cleveland, and they sent Aroldis Chapman to Chicago.
Cleveland, Chicago, yeah.
Yeah, and that's the only reason I remembered it, because that was the Yankees don't dump. They're not sellers at the trade deadline very often.
Yeah.
7 years ago they were. So, yeah, Cleveland was in the ALCS. The other team, shocking to me.
I can't remember who Cleveland beat to get to the series, though.
Toronto.
Get out of here. Was that the Batista, like the big
the bat flip year? No, I think that was earlier.
Okay.
I think that was earlier. I think, and that was against Texas, wasn't it?
It was, yeah.
A controversial one that I got. Oh my gosh, we can't have fun in baseball. Yeah, so
because after that, that's when Odor landed the most solid punch in baseball history on Joey Bat's face.
Exactly.
Knocked his glasses off.
You mentioned the Mets and Brewers. So the Mets and Brewers they played a double header in the playoffs. That's got to be tough.
Yeah.
And weather happens, and it is what it is. But that was the only game 3 we got, and I was sitting at my computer playing a dice baseball game while I had the game on Gamecast on ESPN. So I'm just kind of watching back and forth, and it's 0-0, which, I mean, for a lot of fans, 0-0 is boring. But in an elimination playoff game, nothing in the
That's
sixth inning is like
it's like a Keats poem. It's beautiful.
that's what baseball wants. That kind of
That's the
tension.
good stuff.
You don't want 15-14. So the
Well, that
back-to-back
can be
homers,
beautiful too, though.
not 15-14. Eesh.
Well, but I mean, 15-14, you get into situational. What are you going to do with your bullpen? What are you going to do with your bench?
You know who likes 15-14 in game 3 of a wild card? Whoever they're playing in the division round.
That's true.
Even with 2 or 3 days off, yeah, holy cow, that bullpen's probably got messed up. But
I had a lot of Phillies friends who were like, use your bullpen, use your bullpen.
Burn them out. Yeah, so I mean, I guess a lot of Philly fans thought they were going to get Milwaukee. Back-to-back homers, 2-0 going into the top of the ninth, and then New York just chipped away. And Pete Alonso is a clutch hitter. Like, he really is. And is he a free agent this year, I think?
He is, because a lot of people were saying that could have been his last at bat as a Met.
Maybe lining his pockets a little bit. How old is Pete Alonso? Do you know?
I don't, but this is an interesting fact. In the long history of baseball, no one had come up with his team trailing in the ninth in a major league playoff game, like any round of the postseason, and hit a home run in the ninth inning to put his team ahead until Alonso yanked that one to right field in Milwaukee.
No kidding.
Yeah.
Say that again. No one
had ever come up with his team trailing in the ninth of a postseason game and hit a go-ahead home run until Alonso did. So
really?
No one had ever hit a go-ahead home run in the ninth inning of any postseason game in the 150 years, going back to almost, wee Willie Keeler.
Pete Alonso is not even 30 years old.
Yeah, that dude's going to make a lot of money.
He made himself a lot of money. So now playoff wise, here are the brackets. We'll put them up on the screen for everybody because this is where you come for your baseball news. The aforementioned Mets will travel to Philadelphia. The Tigers and the Guardians, they lead off the division round today, 1:08 on a Saturday. First pitch will be thrown by Tanner Bibby in the best of 5 series now. The Mets will play the Phillies at 4:08. And I checked, the Phillies have a 7-6 record over the Mets this year. So super tight series, like really close.
And I don't think the Phillies wanted to get the Mets, because that is always a dangerous thing when you get someone that you've played that often, when you get a division opponent.
Yeah. And what's ironic, like looking at this whole bracket, the postseason sponsored by Adobe, it looks like, we have 3 of them. The NL East right there, the AL Central, Detroit and Cleveland. We talked about them. Kansas City goes to New York, and the Yankees have won 5 of the 7 games with Kansas City. But, throw that record out. It doesn't matter anymore. We have Garrett Cole in game 1, Michael Wacha for the Royals. And I think this game, this series, like I said, I think it's going to go 4. I think the Royals win game 3, but that's just a guess. And then out in the National League, we have the National League West showdown, Detroit, the Dodgers and the Padres. The season series, believe it or not, the Padres have an 8-5 lead in this series.
I think that Padres-Dodgers series is going to be the series of this round. I think they're going the distance.
So game 1 starters, because if it goes 5, you usually see these guys again. Dylan Cease, the new Padre, the former White Sox. Boy, has his life changed a little. Yeah. And Yoshinobu Yamamoto for the Dodgers.
I don't speak Spanish.
It's going to be an offensive series. I think you get guys like Manny Machado and Fernando Tatis and Shohei and the whole.
Yeah, the Dodgers have that Japanese guy hit a couple home runs.
You can bet he's excited about his first playoff series. There was only a little pun in there if you caught it. But so who do you have in the if you had to pick winners, Mister Prognosticator Pants?
I do like the Yankees to beat the Royals, and I do like Detroit.
Right, so we're two for two.
Because I really feel like Detroit is what Arizona and Texas were last year. And I still like a Dodgers. I think the Phillies are going to have trouble with the Mets, but I do like a Dodgers Phillies and LCS.
So you're
Maybe
going.
I want to see it.
Oh, okay, well, that works. I'm with you. Thinking. I'm with you, except I'm going to take the Mets just because I'm holding out hope for a Subway Series, because I think if New York makes the World Series, and by all stretches of who's in that bracket, New York versus the American League Central, they should. There's all the pressure in the world is on New York right now. Now that Baltimore and Houston are gone, because I think those were the big threats. They should beat Kansas City. They should beat Cleveland. They should beat Detroit. Whether they do or not is another story. I think Philly would be a tough series for New York. I think LA would be an interesting series. I think it would be a tough series. I think the Mets would be a stressful series, but I think they're better than the Mets. And we can call it the series for Soto, because whoever wins that would probably get the inside track on signing him to a $800 million contract or something like that. I don't know.
I'm curious what you think is going to happen with Juan Soto. Where do you think he's going to end up?
I think we'll cross that bridge after these playoffs, because I think how Yankee Stadium looks and feels tonight and going forward, I think will play a large role. I think he likes New York. I do. I think he likes playing with Aaron Judge. I think he's acclimated himself to that clubhouse and to that culture. That people talk a lot about, the differences between Yankee culture and everywhere else. It's the facial hair, it's the sideburns on Mattingly, the corporate look that I'm not 1,000% a fan of, but I understand, and it's fine. It's whatever. I think he's welcomed that a little bit, and I think a good playoff atmosphere will go a long way. There's some players out there who they can't handle getting booed. Like I remember when Derek Jeter was mired in like an 0 for 40 slump, and like 0 for 30 in or 0 for 33 in, the fans got on, they booed Derek Jeter hard. And he said something to the effect of like, I'd boo me too. Like, I suck right now. What do you want? With a guy like Soto, I don't think he's been booed hardcore this year, but I don't think that would bother him. I think he understands the expectations, I think, if that makes sense.
And it's funny. I don't know if people younger than us can appreciate, for a large chunk of our childhoods, the Yankees weren't in the playoffs.
Oh, they were bad.
They were 0 for the 80s. And so
they had a couple of years where they were close.
Right.
But yeah, for the most part, yeah, my
85,
my memory
they just missed out.
My first game at the stadium, they lost to the Blue Jays and Jimmy Key 9-0. But Don Mattingly hit a double, so I was happy. That's kind of where you held your hat, like, oh boy, Donnie Baseball he's going to win the MVP or something. But yeah, they couldn't get over the hump, and that was back when, again, there was only 2 divisions. The division winners went to the playoffs. They might have made the playoffs 1 or 2 years. I'd have to go back and look at the records. If there were a 5 or 6 team playoff, I don't think they would have made the playoffs many years. I'm talking maybe one year they finished in second place with like 93 wins, but like Boston at 100.
But like the point you made about Soto seeing that atmosphere, I didn't really appreciate, even as a Red Sox fan, how much better the playoffs are when the Yankees are good and when the Bronx is just rocking.
If you're Major League Baseball, if you're the higher up admins and you don't have a dog in the fight, You absolutely are a Yankee fan. Out in the National League, though, I mean, you have three major markets. You know, whoever comes out of the Mets Phillies series, I don't think MLB cares. I think MLB is rooting for the Dodgers. Although San Diego, you get the San Diego Yankee '98 rematch, and it's the Michael King versus Juan Soto revenge tour. There's stories there. It's just they're not big TV markets. I
Bring
think
it
I think Major League
Brown to
Baseball
throw
wants to
game
keep.
one.
I lost you. What'd you say?
I said, bring out Kevin Brown to throw game one.
If he hasn't punched a hole in the wall by then. What a guy. So that's starting up in about 3 hours first pitch. So we'll see how Major League Baseball works. We're segue to, instead of punching the walls, we're gonna crack our helmets a little bit, and we're gonna start college football today with Division II, because Division I is it's met today. So in the PSAC, IUP and Bloomsburg, big time games. I'm talking season defining games. Out west, IUP has Slippery Rock at home. It's homecoming week for IUP. Both teams undefeated, 4-0. Both teams nationally ranked. Slippery Rock is 9, IUP's 21. And while IUP may have a historical edge, Slippery Rock won last year 42-21. They've won 3 of the last 5, 6 of the last 10. And they have a super offense, potentially. I think that they must have lost a couple wide receivers because they have their quarterback, Braylon Long. It's from my neck of the woods. He's from Hanover. Braylon Long was a finalist for the Harlan Hill Trophy last year, and he comes in this year among the all-time leaders in Slippery Rock passing. But he's not the one winning games for them this year. It's their defense. The defense is ranked in the top 10 in nearly every category in Division II. And the big thing Slippery Rock does, they jump out to early leads. In every game this year, they've outscored their opponents 43-7 in the first quarter, and then they hold on. So like last week against Edinburgh, they rolled up 28-0 in the first quarter, but that was it, and they won the game 28-23. They had to hold on. So if IUP can withstand that first half storm, if it's close at halftime, I think IUP has a chance. If Slippery Rock gets out to a big start, I don't know if IUP can come back because they haven't had to so far this year. But, I mean, it's homecoming. It should be a good game, and should be a good atmosphere. I am here. I'm not in Indiana right now, so I won't be able to yell and scream and shout. But,
you can still yell and scream and shout.
They'll do it without me, and Jen will be like, what is going on down there?
She'll think,
why? We just got a turnover. Oh, okay. But in the East, you know, I checked this out. Bloomsburg actually goes to Slippery Rock later this season, but this week they've got their own divisional rival, Kutztown. What do you know about them?
I know that Kutztown, this is going to be a defining game for Bloomsburg. They're a very surprising 3-1. And if they can go on the road and beat Kutztown and be 4-1 going into homecoming next week, Bloomsburg's a problem for the PSAC East. Bloomsburg, a 4-1 Bloomsburg, if they win this week, becomes a very unexpected problem for the rest of the division. I don't think I think Frank Sheptock was on the hot seat. I think if he didn't have a good season this year, he was probably going to be out. And he's coaching like his, tenure depends on it. And
it does.
Yeah, exactly. And the teams responded.
Aside from the one loss, which was a touchdown pass with 9 seconds left. I mean, you're looking at potentially a pair of 4-0 games going into this week. I agree that the thing about Bloomsburg is Bloomsburg is this year's Detroit Tigers. You didn't look at them in the preseason, and now all of a sudden here they come 3-1. So if Kutztown was the odds-on preseason favorite to win in the East, and I don't think Kutztown looked at Bloomsburg as like, oh, we have to worry about these guys. I think they looked at East Stroudsburg like that.
Right.
I think Shepherd is historically a good team, so they might have looked at Shepherd like that. But yeah, Bloomsburg preseason, no. I think this week though, they probably grinded down like, oh, these guys might be for real. It'll be
Bloomsburg, they're the classic case of the cardiac kids where you don't want to be in a one-score game in the fourth quarter with Bloomsburg because that's what they do. They did it at Edinburgh. They just, other than that one loss, they just have a knack for making teams uncomfortable late.
And I think if you're Bloomsburg, hopefully they spent this week looking over film of the last 3 games against Kutztown, because for the last 3 years, Kutztown has outscored Bloomsburg 82-10. So this year, Bloomsburg has to come into this game mad, and this is like the pride drill in football,
Right. But, honestly, I can just say as an alum, it's just nice to care about Bloomsburg football again.
Yeah, I can see that. It's good to be relevant. It's not good to be Gannon right now.
Right.
And I can say that because I know no one from Gannon is watching the show, even though we are the second most popular sports show at 10 o'clock on Saturdays during college football season.
Even Rich Gannon wakes up and he's like, I wish I was Tom Brady.
I wish I was Rich Brady. Well, speaking of Tom Brady, where Tom Brady went to school, and the school that we follow in Division I, not a ton of marquee games. If you look, I guess number 9 Missouri at number 25 Texas A&M is the big one. I don't think anybody's excited about the new number 1 Alabama versus Vanderbilt. I don't even think my dad is excited about that. The new number 2 Texas, they're off. Today might be the toughest game for number 3 Ohio as they play Iowa. But again, I mean, that game's going to be over by halftime, you have to think.
Sure.
Our Wolverines, though, are out west against a semi-familiar foe. Newcomers to the Big Ten, the Washington Huskies. The last time we saw these two teams on the same field, the stakes were a little bit higher, national championship game. But these two have actually played regular season games before. Recently enough, in 2021, the Huskies came to town and Michigan came out with a 21-point win. Michigan had a pair of running backs named Hassan Haskins and Blake Corum, though. This year is a little different because we have Donovan Edwards and Khalil Mullings. The last game we played in the regular season against Washington, Cade McNamara threw for 88, or let me write that. No, he threw 44 yards. And I say that because Alex Orji, the last time he was out, he threw, I think, 88 yards or 86 yards. So can the Wolverines pound the ball enough to pull out a road win at Washington?
I think it's, and I say this every time they play, anyone who's worth a dang. I don't think so. I think it's too tough a task, though, to go, from Ann Arbor out to the Pacific Coast. For USC to come to Ann Arbor, that was surprising enough. But to go on the road to Washington, I don't see it.
The last time they were in Washington won. I don't know if that might have been 2020. That was a tough year. If you look at the analytic matchup predictor or whatever, the matchup predictor gives Washington a 58.2% chance to win. They're 2.5-point favorites, and if you're Vegas, what's the line usually? 3 points for being at home.
Yeah, 3 points home advantage. So
this is
Vegas
basically it's a pick'em game.
Would win on a neutral field.
It's a pick'em game. I don't know if Michigan would win on a neutral field. I mean, the both teams are completely different. Penix is gone, Adonze is gone, Corum is gone, McCarthy's gone, Harbaugh's gone. The coach for the Alabama Crimson Tide, I can't think of his name.
Oh yeah, that
he's gone. brand new coaches. Both coaches moved on to bigger and better things. Alabama's bigger and better than Washington. Anything in the NFL is better than anything in college. So this is a chance to rewrite your story or create your narrative if you're Sharon Moore. And I think Washington wins by 40. That seems to be that's the trick against the West Coast teams, right? I think it's a close game, and it comes down to turnovers and whether or not Orji can throw the ball, because eventually you're going to start to see 9 men in the box.
Yeah.
And put pressure on him. You have to be able to keep Orji like vertical for 3 seconds, and he's got to make reads quicker. He just does. And our receivers have to get some kind of separation, which we haven't seen the last 2 weeks. And he had a better game against Minnesota than against USC, but
second half against Minnesota. Oh,
the fourth quarter.
I'm going to be talking to my cardiologist about the second half of that Minnesota game. God,
yeah, the fourth quarter was not the best, but if we can get a lead on Washington, that keeps their strength off the field. I think their best player is their running back, Jonah Coleman. So if we put them in a situation where we know they have to pass, injury wise, I don't know what our big injuries are. I didn't see anything online. I'm worried about Will Johnson, honestly.
Yeah, I know you were texting me during the game, and because he injured his arm against USC.
Yeah,
and he sat last week. I haven't seen. I believe he's questionable for today, but he was questionable last week, and they held him out.
Yeah, and just their defensive end, Josiah Stewart, they lost their starting tackle, Miles Hinton. I'm going to see if I can find something right now. Injury report. Will Johnson left. He's questionable, but, Moore is optimistic. Josiah Stewart, injury not disclosed. Optimistic about the return this week. I mean, they're optimistic about Hinton as well. So, I mean, it's one of those, we'll sees. But if Will Johnson and Josiah Stewart are out, the defense is significantly weaker. And I would tend to say Washington has a good chance to win. This is the first road game for Michigan, too. So you throw that kind of element into it. And Moore tried to play it up like, oh, this is a good thing that, we don't have distractions. I don't know. You're traveling out west. There's all new distractions now. So.
Right. And it's funny because before the season started, I didn't really look too closely at the Michigan schedule. So each week when I'm tuning into games and I see that familiar brick facade on the sidelines, and I'm like, oh, we're back in the big house. Oh, that's nice. Another home game. But, that's a debt that comes due.
Eventually, yeah. This year, the schedule very home heavy early and very road heavy late. Obviously, the big game late down in Columbus, but they're on the road against Illinois next week. They have Oregon comes to town this year. Michigan State is in Ann Arbor this year. Those are going to be big games back to back, which makes me wonder. Oh my goodness, next year's schedule, they could. I don't know it off the top of my head, but they theoretically could be at Michigan State, at Oregon, at USC. I don't know if Penn State comes back on the schedule next year or whatever that looks like, but yeah, it doesn't get any easier. Say that, but
right. So I'm curious if you had to pick a score for Washington today, what do you see happening?
Are Johnson and Stewart healthy? If they're healthy,
let's say they play, but they're not 100%.
I'll give Washington 20-21.
Okay.
And it's, can we score 24? I don't know.
I'm going to be very curious on the first 2 or 3 series, what kind of push Michigan's getting up front and what kind of what they're getting on first and second down if they're running the ball. If they're running for 4, 5, 6 a pop, and they can give Orgy third and manageable. I like Michigan's chances. I just don't know that Michigan can do that consistently enough.
I don't disagree. Um, I don't see Michigan getting 6-7 yards a pop on first down because I think that's when Washington is really going to key on the run. And the only passes I've seen Orgy have any kind of mild success with are those just down the line of scrimmage passes where somebody tries to make a move, and you have to be able to throw the ball downfield eventually. Loveland came back. He was healthy last week, so he's a target over the middle. We'll see if he's a factor today. Aside from the shticky Washington by 40, I think we might be looking at a 23-20 game. And if I could see it going either way. I don't know. Cool.
I see it playing a lot like the USC game. Just maybe not in the good guys' favor. I think going on the road to Washington's just maybe too tall a task.
Road games in college football are tough. There's no doubt about it.
But especially when you're hopping time zones.
Yeah, well, I don't know when they would have left. If they left on Thursday or Friday, I don't know how travel works in college football, especially that far. I have to ask some of my contacts in Division I.
Yeah, let's go to our sources and get back to you.
I do. I know. I am internet friends with, and I know that sounds geeky as all hell, but I know someone who was one of the student managers for the '99 Michigan team, who's good buddies with Tom Brady.
Super cool.
Yeah, so he would know. So I'll see if he tells me, and we'll go from there. But interesting stuff.
Have some Division I contacts, so I'll have to reach out to them.
Yeah, see what they say. And I know who you're talking about. That'll work. All right, so good stuff sports wise, and now here we are at everybody's favorite time of the week, the Soup and Meatballs draft time.
Also, you'll have to bear with me. I'm having my daily Coke Zero.
Oh, okay. So this week, the 39th president of the United States, Jimmy Carter, celebrated birthday number 100. And you had an interesting draft idea based on that. Thanks to that, we're going to draft
that wily old peanut farmer.
Our favorite gyms in all of sports. So you had said your favorite Jim or Jimmy or James or whatever. So
or Jimmer, if you're so inclined to pick Jimmer Fredette.
I didn't.
Me neither.
This one reminded me of the Kids in the Hall sketch. These are the Daves I know. So this draft is these are the gyms I know.
These are the gyms I know. I know. These are the gyms I know.
We can you get the guitar out. We'll sing that after our draft, and we'll throw the last names in there. It won't be the most ridiculous thing ever.
The guitar's right there.
Here we are. Random card here. We have this one. Who would you like?
I'm going Wesley Snipes. I'm going black. All right.
You are the big winner here at the casino.
Mikey's the big winner
with the casino cards. So with the first pick in the gym draft, who do you got?
I was tempted to go with someone else until last night I was watching the 30 for 30 on the early 90s Bills.
Okay.
And I was persuaded to take Jim Kelly.
Oh, that's it. So he was on my list. Not in my top 5 though, so yay.
A PA guy, his career, people wanted to find it by the Super Bowls he lost, but like his post-football career, he's been like the consummate survivor with multiple rounds against cancer.
The cancer story alone, like you said, like you like that's the wrong word. Not possibly. Like, after the fact, like you rooted for the 90s Bills. Like if you rewatched Super Bowl 25, man, you want that kick to go in.
Yeah. And, a lot of people younger than us might not remember this. He was recruited to Miami as a linebacker.
No, oh, yeah. I
And he was like, "No, I'm a quarterback." He really had to fight for his place at the table. Like that's a guy who's been just bulldogging it his whole life.
and
I
and
I love Jim Kelly.
the story about just don't not Buffalo, not Buffalo, not Buffalo, and then Buffalo picks him and he goes to Houston, I
Yeah,
think in the
USFL.
USFL. And then when the USFL folds, like Buffalo had every right to look at this guy as this cocky kid from Miami and say, you know what, the heck with you, you think you're this hot stuff, like, and he came into Buffalo and he proved that he was the hot stuff. And then we talked last night when you were watching that documentary. I loved the Keg on offense, like
Oh yeah.
in the '90s as a Bears fan. I rooted for the Bills. I had a pair of Bills socks. I loved Thurman Thomas. Like they were
Yeah.
my AFC team. They
And
were fun to
of,
watch.
of all the non-Eagles coaches who would be among my favorites, Marv Levy is right up there.
Was Marv Levy a science teacher?
No, he was a literature guy.
Literature, but was he like a professor or a teacher before?
I, I I
I
believe he
thought he
had his
was.
master's, and I believe he was a teacher before he got into coaching. He was one of the early guys who stressed special teams being an equal third of the game.
Hmm?
Which if you know anything about Steve Tasker's career, makes
Oh,
total sense.
absolutely, absolutely,
Yeah,
and
just the premier gunner of his generation, but maybe just the greatest gunner in football history.
yeah, because yeah, man. But the sad postscript to those Bills, um, just the way they made it as far as they did and just never were able to cross the finish line. It seemed every year there was something between the wide right, Thurman Thomas's missing helmet, just the absolute ass kicking in Super Bowl 27.
Yeah,
But
but even
Don
there,
Don
Don
Beebe,
Beebe.
the glimmer of hope, and then the next year is just the Dallas dynasty coming to an end, but just yet again against Buffalo. The Bills offense, I think, was it the first year they made the Super Bowl. I think they put 50 points on the Raiders in the AFC title game.
51-3, they beat the Art Shell Raiders, and
Like they were just, that offense was incredible. And now you kind of see semblances of that offense now. Like, so that offense was 40 years ahead of its time. The whole
he
concept of no huddle and wow,
the, the,
it was awesome.
the whole idea of dictating tempo to the defense was, like you say, 30 years ahead of any other offense in the league.
And
They were
now we have
showing
high
everyone
school.
else how it's done.
We have high schools doing it now. Like my high school, the last time they had a huddle was like 7 years ago. So. Good number one. I like Jim Kelly number one. My number one, I don't think it's gonna be much of a surprise. He's one of my, like, I try not to put celebrities or like sports people up on a pedestal of like being a hero, but I want this guy's whiteboard like in my life because the guy's thoughts are just crazy. He wouldn't let his team eat chicken because it's a cowardly bird.
Oh yeah.
Like that kind of stuff. And he was the quarterback for my Bears. So we're going to go with Jim Harbaugh as my number one. So as an athlete, I just saw this video today because it pops up from time to time. The draft where Mel Kiper and Bill Polian started fighting with each other. And like Mel Kiper was like, you should have drafted Trent Dilfer because all you have is Jim Harbaugh. And that's why you're drafting 2 every year instead of competing for a Super Bowl. And Jim Harbaugh went out and made the AFC title game that year. So
Yeah,
like
Captain Comeback.
Mel's like the meteorologist of the worldwide leader. You could be wrong 90% of the time and still have a job because of your hair.
Yeah, the best thing you can say about Mel Kiper is just impeccable hair.
Well, even now that's going downhill as he gets older. But so Jim Harbaugh was a really good quarterback, but he makes my list, for his coaching acumen and really, especially the last 3 years, if nothing else.
And I mean, as Michigan guys, obviously we focus on what he did in Ann Arbor. both as a player and a coach. But
Talk
also,
about San Francisco and
San
San Diego
Francisco go to a
State.
Super Bowl, play against or coach against his brother.
Stanford knocks off USC.
Oh yeah, such a great career at Stanford. Yeah, he and just like you said, when you reference the chicken, just one of the great personalities in the game.
I have a picture of him outside my classroom that it's another thing that, and I try to do. When I walk in my room and it's like 6 in the morning and I'm dying, attack each day with an enthusiasm unknown to mankind.
Who's got it better than us?
Nobody.
That's a great
I,
pick at number one.
I love that guy. So yeah, Jim Harbaugh is my number one. Where are you going for number two?
Number two, I'm going to go with someone who, during his playing career, was very underappreciated. And then that carried over into his post-retirement life where he didn't get the love from the Hall of Fame that he should have. I'm going with Jim Rice from the Boston Red Sox, your 1978 MVP. Came up, one of the two of the great rookie seasons in baseball history were for those 1975 Red Sox, where him and Freddie Lynn came up and took him, to the pennant in the World Series. And he never got the love from Boston that he should have. Boston. I'm not going to dip my toes too deeply into political waters here, but Boston's a pretty racist town, and that might have played into why he was not as beloved as some people who played for the Red Sox. But I had a Jim Rice starting lineup that had a prominent place in my bedroom growing up. I love me some Jim Rice, and I'm glad he finally got into the Hall of Fame.
You talk about Jim Rice's rookie season. Jim Rice, his rookie year, he finished behind his teammate for the MVP. He was a rookie who was in the top 5 for the MVP.
I think him and Freddie Lynn were both top.
He finished third. I think Lynn, I just looked it up.
Did Lynn win it?
Yeah, Lynn won it substantially. I mean, and Lynn had a really good year. He had 331 with 21 home runs. Jim Rice 309 with 22. So you could say arguably Fred Lynn had a better year.
Right.
But I mean, both players had a really, really good year in 1975, and it's no surprise that the Red Sox won the division that year. So,
and Jim Rice's 78 season,
his MVP year.
Yeah, it's one of the great individual seasons of the 70s, where if it wasn't for Bucky Bleep and Dent, they would have gone, to probably to the series again.
I don't know who won the batting title that year, but Rice was a batting title away from a Triple Crown that year.
Yeah, didn't he hit 48 home runs when that was
40,
not to sound like too old of a man, but when 48 home runs meant a little
he had
more?
46. And 46 led the league. So yeah, that was a big deal back then. 406 total bases led the league. His slugging and OPS led the league. And Jim Rice overall was so in the early 80s when I wasn't a astute baseball fan. Like I didn't know much about the Boston rivalry. I just knew I was happy if Don Mattingly got a double. I knew Jim Rice was good. Like you'd get some of those baseball cards out of like the bread bags, or like Frosted Flakes would give you the prize. You'd get like one of those circular cards. I had a bunch of Jim Rice cards, and like I knew Jim Rice was good. So that's how you know that this guy was good. That like a 7-year-old me who didn't know anything about anything knew Jim Rice's name. I didn't know Fred Lynn's name.
Do you know the story of how Jim Rice saved a kid's life during a game?
No, but that sounds like a good thing to share here.
I believe it was 83 at Fenway. And obviously this was a different time before the netting was up to protect fans from foul balls. And someone hits a line drive that hit a 3-year-old kid. And if I'm remembering the story correctly, so obviously the kid's bleeding, but I believe it sent him into a seizure. And Rice runs out from his position, grabs the kid out of the stands, and runs him back to the trainer to get him immediate medical attention. There's
That's
a famous picture of this kid bleeding all over Rice's jersey, and almost certainly saved the kid's life.
well, I mean, you wouldn't see that today because of the netting and stuff. But
Right.
wow, it reminds me like when I was 11 or 12. I don't know. Ricky Jordan almost drilled me with a line drive up at the Red Barons Stadium. I remember distinctly whizzing over my head. My dad like tackled me to keep me. That scared that right there is one of the main reasons why my favorite seat in all of Yankee Stadium is all the way up where you could touch the back of the stadium. You're under the lid, so there's no sun, and
you can just tap the facade for good luck.
No threat of Ricky Jordan knocking my head off. But yeah, that's Jim Rice story. That's cool to hear. I like that. Good deal.
Yeah, so definitely my number 2, Jim Rice. Give me Jim Rice.
So my number 2 is not a Jim or a James or a Jimmy. He does fit I guess he's a Jim, but I didn't know him as Jim when I was checking out my potentials. He is a Pennsylvania native. He is listed as 6'4", 271 from the University of Pittsburgh, but he cut his teeth with those really good Bears teams as a tackle. I'm going to go with a guy named Jimbo
Covert.
Jimbo Covert.
That's a great pick. I love that.
And really, he's just there because he was on my favorite team.
Sure.
I didn't really start following the Bears until like around 1990, so tail end. But whenever you go back and you watch highlights of Walter Payton and those teams, they talked about Jimbo Covert as being one of the best linemen in Bears history, and he is a Hall of Famer. Yeah.
All I knew about line play as a kid, because when you're 7, 8, 9 years old, you don't know the nuances of run blocking. All I knew about offensive line play was the list of Pro Bowlers that would run in the standard speaker, and I just knew. I was like, oh, first his name stuck out because who's named Jimbo. But I was like, oh, Jimbo Covert would be really good. So whenever the Bears were on TV, I was like, oh, I've got to watch that guy. And whenever because Madden always used to champion the lineman, and Jimbo Covert's name used to come up a lot when Madden was calling a Bears game, with good reason, because like you said, Hall of Famer.
And as I'm looking at my list and writing my names down, the one interesting thing that I can tell you about Jimbo Covert, not that he saved any fans' lives, but he's done something that only a handful of NFL players have done, including Steve McMichael and Lawrence Taylor. He has participated in a professional wrestling match. He was in the 20-man Battle Royal in WrestleMania 2.
Yeah. That's cool as hell.
I don't know how like it was okay back then for your all-pro tackle to go professionally wrestle, but he was in the WrestleMania 2 Battle Royal.
I love that Pete Rozelle had a problem with another Jim McMahon doing his stuff, but he was like, "Oh yeah, Jimbo Covert, go participate in WrestleMania.
Go be part of it." Yeah, and WrestleMania 2 was the one that they were in 3 different arenas.
Yeah,
so they started in New York, then Chicago, and LA. I think those were the 3 cities. Yeah. I don't know where the Battle Royal was. Maybe it was in Chicago. Maybe that makes sense.
I believe it was. And also, did you watch the Mr. McMahon documentary?
I've seen the whole thing now. Yeah.
Yeah, I just love when they point out like the logistical headache of doing it in the 3 cities, where they're like never again.
I had seen reports about that. They might have did like a WrestleMania preview or something, or like a look back, like a WrestleMania history or something. And I remember them not doing that again, because this was back before like satellite communications were easy. I mean, right now, like what we're doing, we're just a bunch of civilians talking to each other on the internet, and we figured out how to do this. This was back in like
Like
1983 or 84
the
when
computing power we have on our phones. Like I'm on my phone right now. The processing capability of my phone is stronger than any computer NASA had when they landed a man on the moon in July of '69.
let me just double check the year again. I can do this,
85?
real time while we're live here. WrestleMania 2 was the
April
second
85?
annual WrestleMania, 1986. It was a Monday. They had WrestleMania on a Monday in 1986. So yeah, and so what we're doing now far exceeds their technology. But yeah, that's how do we get here? Jimbo Covert.
I love how we start with Jimbo Covert and start talking about the history of technology.
Yeah, that's where we are here at Soup and Meatballs.
Your worldwide leader in technology news. So I'm also going to go with someone from our mutually beloved team. And I know we talk a lot about Michigan football, but I know that we are also, especially in the 90s, we're fans of Michigan basketball.
I know where you're going. Yeah, absolutely. He made my list. He was number 6 on the list. Just missed the top 5.
I need some Jimmy King. I need some Fab Five representation.
Jimmy King was the third or the fourth. I think he was the third guy in that recruiting class. So Juwan Howard came first. Right. Jimmy King might have been. You know what? He might have been second. And I read the book, and for me, that's remarkable. You can ask my wife. Like me reading a book, forget about it. But the whole story of how that team came together, and Jimmy King was he was a really good player, but he might have been the 4th scoring option on that team, where had he gone to a Texas or a Kansas, he would have been the number 1 option.
Yeah, because obviously Weber was the stud, and
Juwan Howard and Jalen Rose were probably the other problems offensively. Jalen Rose was, holy cow, he's like a 6'9" point guard. Right. And Juwan Howard had that really weird, awkward shot that would fall. So yeah, I mean, Jimmy King was the slam dunk guy though. Like when they had their preseason Midnight Madness or whatever, he'd be the dunk dude.
And my favorite Jimmy King story comes from Mitch Albom's book. I believe it's when they were sophomores making their run to the final against North Carolina in '93. And they got a scare in the second round. Was it against George Washington or was it against UCLA?
No. I think George Washington was the next game. I think UCLA was game 2. And I think I know the story you're talking about too, because about the game-winning shot.
Right, where he got the game-winning putback. And then he's running off the floor. He goes to the scorekeeper. He's like, that's also a rebound.
It's a rebound too. I remember that.
You got to love a guy who is all about the team, but also he's like, but make sure my stats, please.
Shooting guard doesn't get a lot of rebounds, so yeah, make sure you get that. No, that was a very stressful tournament because they struggled against UCLA, they struggled against George Washington and Yinka-Dinka-Doo, and then I believe it was Temple in the regional final. And John Chaney sent out his army of linebackers, and just that was a very physical game.
Right.
No, Jimmy King's he's a good pick, and if you've ever watched the 30 for 30 on Fab 5, Jimmy King is also he's one of the more well-spoken. You like remembering of that time era. He's a good storyteller.
Yeah.
I don't know what he's doing now. I mean, I think he's still in basketball some way. He's not playing. I know that.
Right.
But, I'm also going to go to Michigan for my number 3 pick. So he's not a Jimmy, though. He's a James. In the early, the mid-'90s, he showed up, and he was part of the '97 championship team. One of the better defensive linemen, outside linebacker types. I remembered him back then, but when I re-looked these guys up, I'm like, oh yeah, I remember this guy. Butkus Award semifinalist, all conference, big time guy. His name is James Hall.
Okay, I like that pick.
He back in the night, he wasn't like the Glenn Steele or the Charles Woodson or like the big name, but he's the kind of guy that the glue that put things together. He was a third team All-American his senior year, and he was drafted. Did he make the draft? By Detroit of all people. So he signed as a free agent with the Lions, the whole Michigan connection, I suppose. But 3-year starter for the Wolverines.
And it's funny because I know usually when we do these drafts and then you put them on Facebook and people have to pick who drafted better. I like that we're picking people who are personal to us.
Well, that's what this draft is. It's our favorite gyms. It's not the best. I mean, if it's the best gym, I think 7 picks in, somebody else would have got picked first.
Right. And honestly, that's where I'm going with my next pick.
He's my number 9.
Just because but it's still something that's personal to me because I'm going with Jim Brown.
Yeah, you want to win the Facebook poll again.
I'm so needy. I just need the love. No,
need that affirmation in your life.
I have very personal memories of my father telling me, because obviously Jim Brown retired long before either of us were born. He retired in 68, 69. But I can just remember my father telling me, he's like, no, you don't even know how good Jim Brown was. Barry Sanders, don't come at me with that weak stuff. Barry Sanders. Emmitt Smith, no, you didn't see Jim Brown. And then when film of 60s football became more readily available on the internet, and I was like, oh yeah, Dad was right. Jim Brown's I saw Barry Sanders in real time. I saw Emmitt Smith. I saw Thurman Thomas. I mean Walter Payton. I still, believe that Jim Brown's one of the 3 best football players to ever play.
I'm not going to argue with that. That's.
But also, I want to win the Facebook people's love.
I think. I think my best moment with Jim Brown wasn't even on the football field. It was, I think he was selling wings, or no, he was selling ribs. He was selling ribs to a very young Chris Rock in the movie "I'm Gonna Get You, Sucker."
He had such a great acting career. He was in The Dirty Dozen. He was in He Got Game. Just a guy who lived a life.
He was a pop culture phenomenon after his retirement, but I would be one of the newfangled. I'm like the new age kids who say LeBron's better than Michael. I've never seen a better running back than Barry Sanders, and I've only seen highlights of Jim Brown, and I'd be one of the guys like, man, you don't even know, you didn't see. He's still one of the
5 yards a carry for his career.
I know.
That's ridiculous.
Oh.
All right, where are you going with number 4?
Oh my gosh, yeah. Oh, because I'm. All right, so I have my number 4 is just a tremendous story of perseverance and just relative awesomeness. He went out and threw a no-hitter for the New York Yankees with one hand. Holy cow. Jim Abbott. And Jim Abbott played for a bunch of teams. I remember him when I was growing up. I think he was an Angel when I was growing up.
Yeah.
But when the Yankees picked him up, it was about the time I was actually following baseball a little bit more. And I remember just thinking to myself, how does he do this? Especially if he gets a comebacker. Well, he figured it out. And he was never like the best pitcher in the world. But I mean,
He was up there.
he
He was a top
retired
3
with
Cy Young guy one year.
he retired with a win above replacement of around 20. So yeah, he was I'm looking it up now. That he finished third in the Cy Young in '91, but he was never back there again. He just had a steady career where he was like based on his wins and losses, the innings pitched, and his ERA. He was a 3, which there's nothing wrong with that.
He's a great example of the way that kids just accept the world as they see it, because I remember seeing him out there with one hand and then swapping the glove out after he had pitched, and I was just like, oh yeah, that's just okay. Like, I didn't take it as anything remarkable. I was like, yeah, that's okay. He's a pitcher.
Yeah, I was the exact opposite. I was just like completely blown away. Like if I
that's
ever
me now.
if I lost, dude, I mean, I broke my wrists a bunch of times, and I lost the ability to use my thumbs, and but I knew I was getting it back, and I was a whiny baby about it. He went out and threw a no-hitter.
If I stub my toe, I'm done for the day. Let alone like if you chop one of my hands off.
I wake up, I step on a Lego. All right, that's it. I'm going back to bed.
Yeah, I'm just like, well, Saturday's done. See you Sunday.
That was good.
Jim, he didn't make my list, but man, that's a really good pick. Now I have to think where I'm going for 5. I'm consulting my list here. I'll tell you some of the ones I didn't pick.
I have a whole list of honorable mentions. Don't worry. There's a ton of them. And just because they're named Jim, and their name needs to be mentioned here.
So the previously mentioned Jim McMahon was one of my honorable mentions. Okay. Someone who played for both of our teams. James Braddock, Cinderella Man, the boxer.
Okay.
He was an honorable mention. But I think where I'm going to go, he is the epitome of what we call country strong. He never played for any of my teams, but he's just a guy that you love to watch. Jim Thome.
Jim Thome, okay. He didn't make my list, but he didn't make my list because I don't like Philly. And back when he played for Cleveland, they were another team that just didn't like. But yeah, holy big strong dude who could probably like flip one of those big tractor tires just by looking at it.
Just like one of the most he's like what our father's generations had Harmon Killebrew, who's a guy who people don't really think of, but he quietly hit 586 home runs.
Yeah.
Jim Thome is our Harmon Killebrew.
I will not disagree with that assertion. I can, if he's a guy, I
the
can
word assertion, by the way.
if he's a guy I can picture, like high buzz cut, just a big wide. I have to look it up because how much do you think Jim Thome weighed? I'm giving him 285.
I'm gonna say 260.
250, 6'4", 250. So he looked bigger in my mind.
And he wasn't like
22-year career. Again, Cleveland, Philadelphia, as I remembered him, but then with the White Sox, the Twins, the Dodgers, he had a cup of coffee in Baltimore his final year.
And I also almost went Jimmy Rollins, who was just a hell of a lot of fun to watch.
Jimmy Rollins, I remember it was either 2004 or 2005, had a 41 game hitting streak or something like that. Like he got close to Pete Rose's National League record. And people were talking about how, it's possible he could get to DiMaggio. And I thought, dude, he's at 40 right now. He's got to go another 2 weeks. You know how hard that is? If he does, amazing. Whatever.
And also Jimmy Rollins in studio talking baseball. He's fantastic.
So your list is, let's see, football 2, baseball 2, and a basketball. So I have 3 football, and one baseball. So I'll give you my honorable mentions, and I'll work my way up from people who were not in sports because I was looking up famous Jims and James.
Me too.
The the two non-sports that I thought maybe I could tie into sports somehow were Jim Croce and Rick James.
Jim Croce.
I like Jim Croce. I like his music, but
I like Jim Croce too.
Rick James maybe would have played basketball with Prince, but
right. I think of Rick James as being the producer of when Eddie Murphy had a brief recording career with the song "My Girl Wants to Party All the Time."
all the time.
And Rick James is just in the background of the music video. And he's like, "Yeah, Eddie, this is it. You're crossing over, dude."
I got those two. Then a Jim who doesn't even exist, Jimmy Dugan, who I think that would have been an illegal stretch. So then I had three in professional wrestling: Jim Neidhart, Jimmy the Mouth of the South Hart, and maybe one of the best interviews in all of professional wrestling, Jim Cornette. If we're talking about guys who can talk, Jim Cornette is up there. Speaking of guys who can talk, Jim Nance made the list. Sports announcer for March Madness. Another good announcer.
We can't forget the Masters.
Yeah, I don't watch golf. So, I don't watch golf, so. But sure, yeah, Jim Nance probably does that. Jim Cat for his work on the Yes Network.
And one of the great defensive pitchers. He had like 16 Gold Gloves. Him and Maddox, two of the great defensive pitchers.
One of the better clutch basketball players in our day and age, Jimmy Butler.
He was on my list as well.
Made the short list. Now we're going to get into my top 10. Just because I needed 10, I went with an Olympic athlete who has a local tie because of the name of a city, Jim Thorpe.
He was also on my list. We both grew up like 10 miles from Jim Thorpe.
I used to go watch ECW wrestling in Jim Thorpe. So,
do you know the story of how the town of Jim Thorpe got the name Jim Thorpe?
I was named no.
Okay, I'll make this very quick. So it had long been named Mock Chunk.
Mock Chunk, yes.
And then in the 50s, like tourism for Mock Chunk started to like sort of dwindle. Like it had been like a tourism town like in the 19th century, early 20th century. And so they were like, what can we do to drum up tourism? Let's buy the corpse of a famous athlete and name our town after him. He had no connection to Pennsylvania. So they reached out to the family who, and this is the sad part of the story, was pretty destitute. And they were like, we'll give you a lot of money if we can have your father's remains, and we'll build our whole town after him. We'll name our high school, like Jim Thorpe's high school is the Olympians.
Yeah.
And so that's how the town of Jim Thorpe became Jim Thorpe.
That's an interesting. They bought the remains.
Yeah, they bought. They used to have like the same way that you have like
things you learn on this show. That's some creepy trivia, man. Like
the same way that you would go to like a store and that you see like a little like donate, like this family like burnt, like their house burned down. It would be like slip $1 in here on your way out because we want to buy this guy's corpse.
Wow. So there it is. And Jim Thorpe was my number 10. Wow. My number 9 was Jim Brown. Number 8, in my time as a college basketball fan, I've long rooted for Syracuse as well as Michigan. Jimmy Boeheim, the head coach, was on the list as,
and also Calhoun. He's a good one from UConn.
Jim Calhoun from UConn. Yeah, tremendous. But my number 5 is good. He makes it for one at bat back in 1996. Back at the track, at the wall, we are tied. And this guy had a lot of problems after this hit with get a DUI. He's probably not a very nice person, and that's whatever. But just for that one hit against Atlanta, we're going to take Jimmy Leyritz.
Yeah, I figured. I thought Boeheim would be in your top 5 because you like the whole time, like 6th, 7th grade when I first met you. You were always wearing Syracuse stuff.
I like Syracuse, but yeah, I mean, if without that home run, Jim Boeheim, he would make the list because Jim Boeheim was my number. Well, as I delete them all, where'd they go? He was 8. He was after Jimmy King and Jim Kelly, so he would have made my
But
team.
I had a strong suspicion that Leyritz would be in your top 5, if only for 96.
And there it is. So I don't know how this is one of those drafts where like Jim Brown going 7th. Obviously, he's probably the best Jim in all of sports. So this is a personal preference thing, and I feel good about. I got my 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I don't feel bad about this, and we got to talk a little bit about Rick James. That's a win too.
He's the super freak.
So there's our draft, and it'd be interesting to see who other people's gyms would be, but that's for them. So
I think that ended up being a very fruitful draft for
and a good discussion, which is what we're doing here. So good discussion, I bet, coming up with the top 5. And that this is something we had talked about a long time ago. I think we tried to be timely with this top 5 because it's baseball playoffs, and it's the season of the bullpens. And we had talked before about if you were a closer, what song would you run in to the 9th inning to? It's a 3-2 ball game, a 3-1 ball game. You've got to go get 3 outs. What are you running in for?
And I have the relief pitcher mustache, so I think I have an edge here already.
Might, I don't know. I have the relief pitcher. You
look like David Wells a little bit.
Which reminds me that the year that David Wells was traded to Toronto, this is in his book. He shows up to spring training. He's got this big bushy goatee, and Cashman calls him into the office, and he's like, "I know, I got to shave." And he's like, "No, that's not it. Yeah, we traded you to Toronto." And he's like, "You're effing lucky you told me before I shaved." All right, Boomer. Yeah. So the pop culture part of Soup and Meatballs now. What song would you run into from the bullpen? We'll go 5, and we can overlap, and maybe we will. I don't know. Musical taste, it'd be interesting to see. 5-1. Tim, what's your number 5?
So I have to consult my list. Oh, yeah. So
the list.
This was a song that actually became a thing for the Nationals a few years ago. And I really loved how the whole stadium would sing along to it when they would play it. I think they used to do it in the 7th inning stretch. But I also think it's great for a reliever. I'm going to go with Take On Me by A-ha.
Wow. Okay. That's
like, can you just imagine like the bullpen, and you come out and it do, and the whole stadium starts singing along, and you're the batter who's taking your cuts, and you're like, oh no.
I like that. I went more. My list has a distinct flavor to it, but I did think about, is there something that I could do like bubblegum pop that would be like really weird? Can I get Miley Cyrus in there somehow just to be
that informs my number 2 choice.
Weird. So no, I like the idea of Take On Me. So for me, I hearkened back to a list that I made a long time ago. I was out on a walk, and I have like a walking playlist, and the song Pour Some Sugar on Me came on. This is not my pick. And I thought to myself,
what are you, a Tampa stripper?
And I thought to myself, man, this song has one of the coolest intros of any song I've ever heard. And it harkened back a memory of the Cosmotron at Knoebels. And I thought to myself, this is what music does. Music is it's an emotion bringer, right? And that's what the closer theme should be. It should bring some emotion to the stands, and it should be like pumping people up. And I made a list I went through all my phone, all the songs on my phone, and I listened to every song the first 30 seconds. And I thought, what are the best intros of all my songs? And then I started asking some of my friends. I asked you, like, what are your best intros? And I ranked, I think, 250 of my favorite intros based on a number of different factors. And like they were the uniqueness of instruments, how the intro connected to the time period, how it evoked memories for me, the overall emotion, and then something I called the bang rating. Like, how much of a banger is this? So I went to that list and I looked at my bang ratings, and I'm going to cheat here because I'm a big sucker for this question. My number 5 is a tie between the Final Countdown for Europe,
Oh yeah, I love
Thunderstruck
that.
for AC/DC, and a song that was nominated by one of the guys I used to coach with, Jared, a song called "The Razor's Edge" by AC/DC. The
Okay.
Final Countdown of all of my top intros was number 3. So if I have to pick between those 5, the Final Countdown is going to be my number 5. But
That's
I wanted to
fantastic.
mention Thunderstruck and The Razor's Edge because those are just awesome songs as well.
The Final Countdown didn't occur to me, but it's like one of those things that as soon as you said it, I was like, oh my God, that's such a fantastic pick. How's that only number 5? That
Because
is
I'm weird. So you're going to see like that was number 3 on my all-time best intros. Every song above that is lower down on that list just because I think in an emotional baseball setting,
can you
these
just
other songs would
imagine
work better.
the stadium lights go down and you hear doo 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 doo. Everyone would lose their damn mind.
And then I would
They
come out
would
of the bullpen and
immediately
be like,
induct you into the Hall of Fame just based on that choice. You'd get the Lou Gehrig, Roberto Clemente waiver. They'd be like, "No, we're waiving the 5-year waiting period."
I
This
don't
dude
care.
walked into Europe.
He's going to give up 7 runs and we don't even care.
So, I will tell you that there's a theme to the rest of my 4 picks. They're all '90s picks.
Yeah.
There's a lot of '90s R&B in here. And number 4 certainly qualifies some deep South '90s R&B. I'm walking into "Regulate" by Nate
So
Dogg and Warren G.
Nate, so that song, and now I have to pull up my list because I actually have my top intros list. Regulate is number 47 on my list. For some reason, it only got I ranked the bangerness out of 20. For some reason, it only got a 9 for me.
Oh, that's
But
a crime.
it
That's
is.
such a
But
banger.
my notes on it, this is what I wrote. Oh man, the first synth hit here is the sound you hear when someone's angry eyes open in a dark, smoky room. This is just badass from go. The only thing that I think would have kept me from putting this on my list, because it made the short list, was the part at the beginning where it says you've got to be handy with the steel, if you know what I mean. I don't know if that would fly in today's baseball stadiums. But music wise, yeah, absolutely.
And
And
that's
wait till
another
you
one
hear some
where,
of my songs after I just said that. Wait till you hear what I say coming up. You're going to be like, you damn hypocrite.
but like honest, can you imagine this again? The stadium lights come down, you just hear that,
Yeah.
doot, 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 and then this mustache is walking out of the bullpen. Game over. Game over.
So here's the other. You have to think about the Titantron, right? And what kind of effects that go up there. Because so a song that didn't make my list, that really I hadn't seen. I didn't know his walkout song. When Aroldis Chapman walked out for the Yankees, they had it was from Rage Against the Machine, "Wake Up," and it was loud. It was that, but it was just like, yeah, the visual effects that you can do with Regulate. Oh yeah, no doubt. That's solid right there.
And also, no doubt, is foreshadowing for one of my next picks coming up. But
oh my goodness. So my list again, similar feel. Europe, AC/DC. This one is more recent. It finished 31st in my overall intro list. I don't know if you've heard this. It's called "This Means War" by Avenged Sevenfold. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to YouTube link all of these songs on our Facebook page or Instagram page so you guys can see and you can listen, because you might not have heard this before. This is an angry song.
And
This is.
I don't know that song, but I also didn't know Narcos by Timmy Trumpet until the Mets started using it. And now, and that one's become like a classic.
It's popular. So let me read you my notes here on This Means War. First note, bang, makes you want to run through a wall just to get to another wall to run through. The anger in the drums makes you want to talk blank to the walls you just ran through. Then the setup from 30 to 35 banger guitar riffs is next level. So that's what I thought of This Means War. It's an angry song, and I would like to think I would be coming in as an angry closer. You think you're getting on bass? Wrong.
So obviously, the second we're done, I'm going to go listen to this song.
Oh yeah, no. I like I said, I will put these up on Facebook for the people who are watching us later in the week, so that you don't have to do the work. But yeah, I've already heard both of your songs, so it's your job to come up with one I haven't heard.
Well, so for my number 3, sticking with 90s R&B, and this is one where I'm trying to get in the batter's head. And also maybe make, everyone in the stands a little uncomfortable. I'm going with I'll Make Love to You by Boyz II Men.
I thought you were going to say I touched myself in the Divinyls, but Tim, that is
Throw your clothes on the floor. I'm gonna take my clothes off too. And like as I come out of the bullpen, I'll be like just like buttoning the last 2 buttons on my jersey.
Your walk up is certainly not family friendly, and I'm here for it. That is tremendous. I hope you're not going with I touch myself later in this one just because I said it.
Oh no.
But
honorable mention.
Wow. Yeah, and again, I thought to myself, like, could you have some kind of weird bubblegum pop song in there? Yeah, I didn't go to Boyz II Men though, and I certainly didn't go to I'll Make Love to You.
I love Boyz II Men. On one trip to Vegas like 10 years ago, I had a chance to see them, but I couldn't because I was flying out the day that they were doing their first show for the weekend. One of my big regrets, I had to represent some Boyz II Men in there, and I mean, what better song?
Yeah, dude. So there it is. I'm no question that'll get some people talking. I dig that. that is spectacular. So for my number 3, I go to number 19 on my all-time intro list, and again, here are my notes, and we'll see if you can guess just the artist from these notes.
Okay.
If you looked up metal on Wikipedia, they would link it to this. Such anger and intensity in all of it. The guitar riffs and the drums. Excuse me while I bench press the Eiffel Tower now.
Is this a song I've heard?
Maybe. We grew up with it, but I don't like. I wasn't big into this group until later on, and I will tell you, they probably have the most famous closer song, and I didn't pick it.
Okay, so it's Metallica.
Yeah. It's and I didn't pick Enter Sandman just because. I mean, this is gonna be my song. I'm not taking his. So this came in 1986, and really I refound. I listened to them when I was in college, when I was pledging my fraternity. One of the guys was a big Metallica fan, and he gave me a job. He's like, "All right, pledge, your job is to listen to every Metallica album and learn every word." And I'm like, that's not going to happen, but I'll certainly listen to every album with you. And I sat down and listened to this. I'm like, dude, this is awesome. Because I used to think about what can I walk to the ring to? This is really the same thing. Master Puppets. So I thought to myself, what can I walk to the ring to? That's all we're doing, is except we're walking to the mound. And then when Eddie Munson. Eddie
Relief pitchers
Munson
are the
rocked this
professional
out.
wrestlers of Major League Baseball.
So Eddie Munson rocked this out in Stranger Things, and like it triggered me. I'm like, dude, I remember sitting in my dorm room with my buddy Jeff, and just he brought all his CDs down, and I put them in my computer because I didn't have a CD player. And I just thought to myself, damn, I could be the World Wrestling Federation champion walking to the ring with dun dun dun. It was just so mad. It felt Ultimate Warrior to me. So yeah, I would pick Master of Puppets number 3.
So, and that is a great pick. Like any kind of, what our mutual elementary school friend Matthew Diaz would call speed metal.
Speed metal.
Yeah.
Didn't pick DNR though. With what was that from Terminator?
Oh,
that was speed metal.
You Could Be Mine.
You could be. Oh, you beat me to it. Yeah. That would be a terrible closer song though.
It would, but "Sweet Child of Mine" would actually be a pretty sweet, maybe as a walk-up song, as a hitter. So my number 2, very similar to "Regulate." I'm going back to Deep South, dirty R&B. And again, you talk about an absolute banger of an intro. I'm going with "No Diggity."
I know, right,
no doubt.
I know right now. Kenny Lowe would be very upset with that.
No diggity.
Yeah, one of our high school classmates, that was like his kryptonite. Like,
well, if he's stepping to the plate when I'm coming out of the bullpen, Kenny Lowe is getting 3 pitches and sitting down.
Gosh, no, he's done after 2. He's going to be down 0-2, and he's like, no, I'm done.
he's just going to retire.
I don't think this is a song you could walk out to. You have to strut out to this.
Yeah, you do a flare strut from the bullpen. You want to hear the entire song because it's that good.
No, I'm still alive. What's up? Are you okay? I think she's interested in our Mr. Smarty Pants, which is coming up.
Sure.
But yeah, so my number 2, and this is where I am going to be completely hypocritical. It ranks 14th on my banger list, and I as I'm reading the notes, this makes a lot of sense. When this song first came out, this was going to be my walk to the ring song. Between the guitar riffs, the drums, and the boom at the 30-second mark, this was enough to get me pumped. But the part that what they're singing about is most certainly not family friendly. I'm going to go with Motley Crue's "Dr. Feelgood."
Oh, that Motley Crue is
Mariano could be the Sandman, I could be the Doctor, but Dwight Gooden had that name, but I could steal it for a little bit. I'd be Dr. Feelgood.
Motley Crue is like the dumbest, best hair band of the 80s. And I say that as a compliment, by the way.
Go watch the Netflix movie The Dirt. It's amazing.
Yeah.
I've seen it 7 times, and I wasn't a huge Motley Crue fan growing up because I wasn't allowed to be. I wasn't allowed to listen to that kind of stuff until like I started buying my own CDs. I'm like, oh, I can listen to this now.
It's funny because I think my parents were even stricter than your parents. And so I would have to go to your house to listen to like Public Enemy.
Yeah.
We were 2 of the whitest kids listening to like Fear of a Black Planet and playing Tecmo Super Bowl.
Those were the days, man.
Fight the power. All right. So my number 1. And as soon as we, mentioned that this was going to be the topic, I knew what my number 1 was going to be. Because if I'm driving in my car and this song comes on, I'm getting a speeding
ticket.
Like, because I'm going to drive my car like I stole it. It's Sabotage by Beastie Boys.
Yeah, I think we had talked about this before, and I remember you saying this. So it made the intro list. It had to have.
I'm still trying to learn it on the guitar. I keep watching YouTube tutorials.
No, it didn't. It didn't make my list. It didn't make the.
Oh, that's.
And maybe it's because I didn't have it on my phone at the time. I do now. I'll listen to it and I'll re-rank it and I'll figure out I'll let you know where it falls. No, absolutely. It's cool. and it's got that flavor of, your list has a sense to it, especially with the hip hopness to it. That's a good flavor, I think, for a closer to have. I think that the people, when they check the list out, they won't give you any grief for any of it except for number 3.
Well, they are just people who don't know how to properly make love.
Yeah, sure.
I'm saying that to you now, Facebook haters.
Yes. So with my number 1, I went with at least lyrical themes that work with the scenario. Like I'm walking into a 1-run game, and my notes, it was number 35 on my list. The bang rating is only 12 out of 20, so it's really just because of the message. One of the tougher piano entries, feels like the vibe, and the second part of the intro with the cymbals and guitar riffs, it sounds like junior high school to me. So it really hit memories for me.
Okay.
Van Halen's Right Now.
Oh, okay.
And I could see on the score list or the chart where the kind of video that they ran. Yep, you're back. You blacked out for a while. But the on the Teletron, we could do something as we're gonna get Tim back in here, similar to the video, where right now we need 3 outs, and right now Max's team is winning, and right now Tim is back.
So. And this happened last week. If I get a call, my phone is like, well, this is more important.
I have my phone set to I have the family only thing right now. So and my sister is just texting me that she can't send or receive pictures, and she hopes the show's going well. And we're going to talk about her here in a second. But
I saw that a little peek behind the curtain for anyone listening. Your sister Roseanne and your wife and you and me all have a group chat where certainly this week we've been texting back and forth about the show.
Well, I mean, let's get good segue, Tim. I like that. So
I'm the king of the segue.
If we wanted to include, and come on now with our visuals, if we want to include those two in our Mr. Smarty Pants host or goal this year, this week, I think we decided to do a little who's who about, who knew Max the best. And I think this was inspired by your 40th birthday. You did something like this at your birthday party. And I don't think I did very well in that. I remember I won the award for coming the furthest.
Right. But to be fair, I was awarding points in the most arbitrary fashion.
I also don't remember some of the questions that were there. So when I put this idea together in my head, I thought, well, I mean, I need to come up with something that's relatively fair and something that, everybody would have a chance to, let me get this thing going. Let's get our email up here. Hide you. Here we go. People would have at least an equal chance to participate in this. So I came up with a list of, let me see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So 10 lists. And I would score them. Like, I don't care where your answers fell. If you said my number 1 anywhere on your list, you were going to get 10 points, and then 8, then 6, then 4, then 2, all the way down. And I would try to make them that, you would know some, Jen would know some. So my wife, Jen, and then my sister, Roseanne. And I was kind of surprised at some of the answers. But we'll go through some of these.
Yeah, I kept procrastinating. I was the last one to fill it out because I was like, I am just biffing this hardcore. Like I'm doing so badly.
Well, let's go through them. So the first one, I
don't know you at all. What's your name again?
The first question was, list what my favorite songs are of all time. Songs of all time, not to walk up to, not to do anything, just my favorite songs. So if I had to go point wise, Jen won this one. She scored 10 points. You and Roseanne scored 0.
Oh no.
I'll tell people Roseanne's list. She picked Rainbow Connection, Can't Stop This Feeling from Trolls. I think that might be Can't Fight This Feeling.
Yeah.
I'm a Believer, The Music of the Night from Phantom of the Opera, and the Star Wars theme.
Okay.
I also
said Music of the Night, I believe.
Went with Music of the Night as well. You also picked Don't Believe the Hype from Public Enemy, New York, New York, Give Me Shelter from the Rolling Stones.
Because I know your dad's a big Rolling Stones guy.
Yeah, and House of the Rising Sun. So when I put my list together, some of the I put a top 10. I have a top 10 of favorite songs, and none of those songs were on my top 10.
I didn't consider it, but Roseanne saying Rainbow Connection is actually a strong pick.
And I will say this, where when Jen I told Jen her score earlier, and she's like, no, you're wrong on a lot of your list. So you might feel the same way, and that's Roseanne will feel the same way, and that's fine. My list is my list.
Jen said you're wrong about your own favorite songs.
Jen scored 10 points because she got my number 1. American Pie is my favorite song, and that's what she put as number 1. So she got that.
Yeah.
But she also picked Real American, like the Hulk Hogan theme. And we walked into our wedding to Real American, so I could see where she would pick that. She picked another Muppet song, Together Again, which honestly evokes more sad memories because The Muppets Take Manhattan was a very sad movie because when they split up, that broke my heart.
It really is.
So Together Again, kind of like it's the opposite of that. But she picked Kashmir from Led Zeppelin. I think that's a really cool intro, but that's nowhere near my top 30, I don't think. And Enter Sandman, which I think is probably, of all her wrong answers, was probably the best guess.
I think Real American's her best guess, considering you walked into your wedding to it.
It was a walk-in song. These are just my favorite songs, not with no rhyme or reason to them. So my top 5, I'll give you my top 10. Number 1 is
remember
American
what the walk-in song to my wedding was, by the way?
Oh my heavens, no chance.
The piano exit to Layla.
That's good.
From Goodfellas when they're showing
when everyone's dying. Nice. So number 1 is American Pie. Number 2 is a song no one would have gotten, and it just is what it is. It's a song called "Time Cures Everything." My former video guy from TV, Jeff Bonomo, was in a band called There and Back Again. He's in a band now called Ostrich Chat. Check him out. But they had a song called "Time Cures Everything" about their lead singer's fight with cancer. And it's my second favorite song. And I will link that here so more people listen to it because it's a great song. Number 3 was November Rain. Number 4 was Love of a Lifetime. And number 5 is Home Sweet Home.
So that would have got you. Home Sweet Home?
Yeah, Motley Crue, Home Sweet Home. That would got you the full 30. If you would have listed Journey's Don't Stop Believing or Faithfully, that would have made the top 10. Weird Al Yankovic, Midnight Star. Puddle of Mud, there's a song called Blurry. It reminds me of Jen, so that makes the top 10. And there's a song called And We Danced by the Hooters. I like that. Oh, sure.
Yeah. So I had no chance at that. I thought at least Music of the Night would get me some points. Because I remember rolling up to football practice listening to the soundtrack to Phantom of the Opera.
It certainly gets you it's something to talk about. But not my top 10 at least.
Let's give them something to talk about by Bonnie Raitt on the list.
No, that's not in my top 500. I don't think. We continued down musical lane though with my top 5 musical artists of all time, and Jen once again won this list 10-0, and I cheated on this list too. Like my number 1 is just totally bad. Wait till you hear this. So you went with. You remember your list?
I think I suppressed that trauma because I did
so you picked Frank Sinatra, which is totally fair. Then you went Body Count, Public Enemy.
When we would lift for football, we would listen to Body Count
back in the day. Yeah, Public Enemy. Then you went Michael Crawford, which is Magic of the Night, and Mungo Jerry, which made me smile at least.
That was me just throwing up my hands where I was like, this isn't on the list, but
What
I
are
have
we doing
to
here?
include it.
No. And Roseanne went with Run DMC, the Beastie Boys, Public Enemy, Metallica, and Sam Cooke. If anyone was going to trigger, like if my father was going to send anybody down, it was going to be Sam Cooke before it was the Rolling Stones.
I'm also a big Sam Cooke guy. Bring It On Home to Me. That's in my top 5.
There you go. So my list, Jen, I think oh boy. I have to rescore Jen here. She doesn't score 10 points. She only scores 8. Because I think I know why I might have given her the 10, because her number 1, she picked Weird Al. And Weird Al, I put number 2 on my list. But that's only because, again, this is just me being really bad. My favorite musical artist right now is Derek. When he starts playing, that's just really cool. So that's cheesy. So I might have given her 10 for the Weird Al.
That didn't even occur to me, but it should have.
So my number 3 was Journey, and then after Journey was George Thorogood, and then I went with Billy Joel as number 5 because I had to come up with a 5. But Puddle of Mud would have been up there.
Oh, damn
it. I think a couple of years ago Frank Sinatra would have made the list, but I just haven't listened to Frank Sinatra in a long time. If I had to pick a favorite hip hop group, it would have been Gangstar. I think Gangstar was always my number 1 rap group back in the day, even though we listened to more Public Enemy. So that was
we listened to a lot of Public Enemy, a lot of Ice-T.
Jen picked NWA and Eazy-E, and she also picked Chicago and Metallica. So
yeah, we listened to a lot of Chicago and the Granada.
There's some lists, there's some maybes there. The next one I went more sportsy, and this was interesting to see like where your guys' thoughts were. Jen won this one with 8, but you came in. Oh no, Roseanne came in with 6. You took the Schneid again, but when I looked over your list, like yeah, they absolutely could have made the list. I mean, Joey Galloway, Eddie George, David Ortiz, Manny Ramirez, Maurice Claret. Maurice Claret probably should have made the list, but.
See, that's how well I know you. I know what should have been on your list.
Jen says the same thing. She's like, when we get to movies, you'll hear this. Roseanne went with Michael Vick. Again, probably could have made the list. Pedro Martinez. I mean, Pedro is a really good pitcher. I mean,
it's like the same way that like I don't hate Rivera just because I loved watching what he did. I just didn't like watching him do it against Boston.
Boston had success against him, and New York had success against Pedro. So,
yeah,
didn't hate him. Jeremiah Smith, I had to look him up. Apparently, he's a Buckeye. Yeah, and I just don't know him. She picked Tom Brady, like
a Michigan guy.
Yeah, like come on. I don't care if he was a Patriot.
Come on, Rosie.
And then she was correct with Brett Favre. Brett Favre made my list.
Oh yeah.
Jen went with people she thought I should have hated, like O.J. Simpson and Michael Vick. She threw Brock Lesnar on there. I have nothing against Brock Lesnar. The guy he can't talk on the mic. That's why they gave him Paul Heyman. She put Manny Ramirez on the list. Manny didn't make my list. Manny's just Manny's Manny.
He's a space cadet. How can't you love him?
But she did come up with my number 2 guy. I'll go 5-1 for you. Number 5 is J.T. Barrett. I'll die on this hill. Barrett was short.
I just kept thinking of Ohio State guys.
And number 4, based on college and going to IUP and listening to Pittsburgh fans talk about this guy, Cordell Stewart. Can't stand Cordell Stewart.
I almost said Roethlisberger.
Roethlisberger's he would be in like the Michael Vick category, like what he did off the field or what he's accused of. Like, but on the he never bothered me. I guess. I mean, he's good. I mean, when people look at the Super Bowl that Pittsburgh knocked off Seattle and they say, well, Roethlisberger did nothing in that game. The defense and a handy pass from Hines Ward won that game. Jen got my number 2. So Brett Favre was number 3. Jen got my number 2 based on, Game 7 of the 2001 World Series and Game 6 of the ALCS. Curt Schilling. Just
Yeah,
and he's a jerk in real life.
Yeah,
So
he wants to lynch journalists, so he can go fly a kite.
But number one is I just didn't like the look of this guy's face. I didn't like the look of the guy's helmet.
You didn't like the cut of his jib.
Nothing about Mark Bellhorn I liked. He's just
I would have never gotten Mark Bellhorn.
Mark Bellhorn is a scumbag, and he's probably a nice guy. I just didn't like him. And I'm
sure there are many people in Mark Bellhorn's life who love and cherish him as a friend and confidant.
I am neither in his life nor do I like him at all. So that's that. The next question, I really put this here because I thought Roseanne might do better at this, and I thought Jen might help her as opposed to my least favorite athletes. I asked for my favorite board games of all time, and here as a grand total, all three of you scored 58 points collectively. Roseanne won; she had 22, and you and Jen tied with 18.
Okay.
So your lists. So all of you had Lords of Baseball. That's my number 2.
Right, and I know you don't like I know you like strategic board games, but I just don't know enough about gaming.
Yeah, well, you got the number 1 and number 2. You got Air Baron and Lords of Baseball. Air Baron was a game we used to play a lot in high school.
Yeah,
with my dad. So all of you got Lords of Baseball and Air Baron. You went with Monopoly, Clue, and March Madness. March Madness is one of my most played games, but it doesn't hit my top 5 favorites. Roseanne said Space Base, March Madness, and Power Grid, which are all really good board games. Jen went with March Madness, Terraforming Mars, and Castles of Mad King Ludwig. Again, those are all really good board games, and if you're not in the board game space, you should go check them out. My top 5 after Air Baron and Lords of Baseball, there's a game called Vegas Showdown that I really like. There's a game called Space Base that I think it was Roseanne who picked up, and a game called the Manhattan Project Energy Empire. And honestly, this was a category I didn't think you guys would do as well as you did, because this is like niche stuff. And this is this is me. My hobbies today, not maybe when I was in high school. So you guys did really good for that category. With the next category I thought you guys would do really good.
Superman does good. We did well. I always used to say that to my kids when they were little, teach them grammar. Because I'm a person that doesn't get invited to a lot of parties. I'm sorry.
Right now, Jen's happy you pulled that out because she'd yelled at me too. My next list, this was one of the easiest for me. My top 5 favorite video games. And if I look at the list, you guys, Jen won this one with 22. You came out with 16. Roseanne came out with 10. But you know what? A lot of these games they're almost interchangeable. Jen pulled out my number. She pulled out numbers 1, 2, and 4.
And you said we all tied with 58?
No. Collectively, you scored 58.
Oh,
so you had Roseanne had 22, and you and Jen each had 18 in that last round.
Oh, okay.
This round, Jen came in first, you came in second, Roseanne came in third. Sum total of everybody is 48 points out of a possible 300. So Jen pulled out my number 1, 2, and 4 game. You pulled out number 3. I gave you credit for number 1 and number 2. And then Roseanne, I don't know what Roseanne was thinking with some of these. So my top 5 favorite video games, nobody got my number 5, which is Baldur's Gate. I love Baldur's Gate. Number 4, it's a series of games, but my favorite is the second one, Civilization 2. Jen just put Civilization, so I gave her credit for it. Number 3, my third favorite game is Tecmo Super Bowl. You got that. You were the only one who got that, actually. Number 2 was the original Legend of Zelda. You got that. Roseanne said Zelda 2. I didn't give her credit for that because that's.
I think I only put Zelda because I didn't know which. I know.
Well, it got you credit.
And that's a
She
lesson
went
to you
Zelda
kids
too, and that's
watching. Always be vague on tests or exams, and
there you go.
you'll get partial credit.
And then everybody got my number one game. You got it indirectly. I had to be nice to you. Super Mario Brothers 3. You put Super Mario All-Stars, which has Mario 3 on it. So I'm like, yeah, I'm going to count that.
I know I've seen on your Facebook stuff about Mario All-Stars and Mario Kart. So
Mario Kart is one of my favorite games to play with the kids. That
yeah.
made so Mario Kart, Baseball Stars, and Super Mega Baseball made the lists of like maybe after the top 5.
Stars.
Baseball Stars was great.
That was.
But Roseanne put you and Roseanne both put Punch Out. That was okay, I guess. I don't think that would have made my list. And Roseanne put Tetris. I'm terrible at Tetris. Like she liked Tetris. She was good at Tetris. I was horrible at it. So
sounds like someone's projecting a little bit.
Rosie. A little bit, yeah. So that wasn't going to get points. The next category, again, Roseanne won this category, and Jen came in second, and you were an abysmal third.
I lost. I lost overall is what I'm hearing. Oh no.
Well, we'll get to overall. So, what are my favorite candies of all time? And this is maybe this is something we should hold on to because we're drafting candies for Halloween. But what the heck? I'll give you the answers for this. My top 5. Number 5 was Kit Kat, and Roseanne had that. My number 4 was really anything. Oh, no. My number 4 was Twix. You and Roseanne and Jen had that. So you all got points for that. My number 3 was anything gummy. So you could have got points for gummy bears, gummy frogs, gummy worms, gummy spiders, gummy whatever.
Gross.
Jen and Roseanne got that. Number 2, whatchamacallit. Roseanne and Jen got that. And then my number 1 is kind of off the beaten path. Nobody figured this, but it's a gummy but it's not gummy. They're called Fruit Gems. Fruit Gems are awesome. They're a gum, but they have like little sprinkles of like sugar on them though, so they're not quite gummy. Oh, go look up Fruit Gems right now or later and get them because they're tremendous.
Boy, I hope I pulled out of this nosedive in the movie category.
Well, we're gonna get to movies. So my TV shows. And this is very largely current, like where my head is now, because as I look at a lot of Jen's and Roseanne's list, there's a lot of like history there. One of yours, I feel bad it didn't make. I have a list of, oh my goodness, I listed 13 different shows that would have made the list. And the Golden Girls should have made that, but it didn't because I just wasn't thinking about it. That's on me. So that was one that you pulled. As far as points wise, yeah, I hate to see you scored a squadouche on this one. Roseanne pulled 10 points and Jen pulled 24.
I got nothing.
So I'll give you the lists.
I thought for sure Big Bang Theory would be on.
So the Big Bang Theory makes one of the. What do they call it? The honorable mentions. Yeah. That would have been there. Honorable mentions along with that: Boston Legal, Californication, Shameless, Friday Night Lights, Suits, The Office, and then some shows you might not have heard of because they only went one season and they should have gotten more. Deception was a show about a magician who solved crime. It was like it was a cop show, but they had a magician showing people how magic could help them solve this crime.
Yeah.
I thought that was great, but it lasted one season. And then it was like a supernatural type show. It was called God Friended Me. There's this guy got a Facebook ad from God, and God was telling him like, go here, go here. And he would help people. And it was like a mystery of who was behind the God account. And they never got to that point. So it kept me entertained. And then I went back to
chance in this game.
No. Well, these are all the honorable mentions, and then you can't do that on television. That was an awesome show growing up. So the top 5 that did make the list were number 5 was Lost, And I think part of that was I didn't watch it live. I binged it, so I never had to wait. I
Oh,
never had the break. Like,
whereas I did watch it live,
and that probably
and I'm
frustrated
so
the heck
glad
out
I
of me.
did. I'm so glad I did. The last 10 minutes of Lost on any given week, where I'd be like, "Oh my God, there are only 10 minutes left. What's going to happen?"
I enjoyed watching that. So that made number 5. Number 4 was, I mean, I really liked Sherlock Holmes growing up. So Elementary was a really cool show, and how they made Watson a female psychologist as like Dr. Watson was kind of neat. And it was just one of those murder mystery crime shows. It was an hour every week. Really good show. I liked that. The next 3 are almost interchangeable. Aaron Sorkin is a tremendous writer, and I got into like actually kind of sort of semi liking politics because of this. The West Wing, awesome. Now, growing up when it was like live, I don't think I would have watched it, but
Also,
binging it later, older, yeah,
R.I.P. John Amos, who played Fitzwallace.
it's it. Number 2 again could be interchangeable. The Blacklist.
Oh,
I
James
love
Spader.
Raymond Reddington might be the best TV character I've ever seen. And James Spader, I tell my kids this, like if there was a movie made about me, I think James Spader would be me. Because
Okay.
he can pull it off. And then number 1, I think really just because of the nostalgic factor, we kind of live this life, except for the whole Demogorgon thing, Stranger Things.
Okay.
So Jen watched a lot of those with me. Jen pulled out
Right.
Stranger Things, The Blacklist, and The West Wing. But she also said He-Man, which if I'm going, full life, He-Man might make the list. Roseanne said He-Man too. Jen also said the Looney Tunes. You know what? Full life Saturday morning. Yeah, I could see that. She came up with 2 shows that probably should have made the honorable mention list. Parenthood. And Parenthood ended just so sadly. So like that's why it didn't make the cut. And The League. If you've never seen The League before,
Yeah.
that's awesome.
I'm surprised. I can't remember what all I listed, but I know I said Big Bang Theory and How I Met Your Mother.
And Golden Girls.
Golden Girls. Cheers.
And you said Cheers and Cheers was it probably should have made the short honorable mention list, but it just didn't. And you picked The Simpsons.
Which, and I know we discussed
recency bias there. I haven't watched The Simpsons in a long time. But, you asked me this question 15 years ago. Yeah, maybe. They possibly make the list. So next category, and you said you hoped to right the wrongs there in the movie category. I can tell you Jen and Roseanne tied with 8, and you scored 14. So
I'll take my victories where I get them.
And this is where Jen was like, no, you're wrong about a lot of this. So I'll give you my list. And I had 3 honorable mentions, and I added an honorable mention just to make Jen happier. The one honorable mention that I added was Saw.
I almost said Saw.
Saw's a good movie. It really, and you know what? What it devolved into is a lot different from Saw 1. If you just watch one of the Saws and Saw 1 is it, and you can appreciate it for what it is. It's not like a Freddy Krueger like slash 'em up movie. It really isn't. It's more of a psychological thriller with some blood and all that stuff. But it is a tremendous story with a great ending. So Saw maybe should have made the list, but it didn't. Ghostbusters made my honorable mention list, and I don't know if anybody got but you had Ghostbusters on your list.
Yeah.
So you got an honorable mention. The Empire Strikes Back made my honorable mention. I don't think nobody picked a Star Wars movie.
I almost did because I know you've watched them with Derek.
Yeah. Well, Jen put Star Wars one of them. So sure.
Any one of these 9 movies.
Any one of them. So my number 5 movie, nobody got. It's Clerks. And that's a time frame movie where like anytime it comes on or anytime I watch it, like I'm immediately back in the 90s. I'm in high school with no bills.
It wasn't ranked 37th.
Not 30, it's 37th. No,
in a row.
Now I guess not 37th. No. My number 4 was let's see. Roseanne had Raiders of the Lost Ark. My favorite Indiana Jones movie is The Last Crusade. So that makes number 4.
Right, because you like the cute Nazi lady.
She talked in her sleep. Number 3, you had number 3. Number 3 is The Goonies. Again, just if you look up the 1980s in the dictionary, there it is. Goonies never say die. Number 2, you had to have number 2. You got number 2. Roseanne got number 2. Jen thought this was my number 1. The Big Lebowski. I could see why you would think that's my number 1. No argument there. You put Spaceballs as my number 1, and I feel very bad that I didn't even think to put that on my honorable mention list. So I'm actually going to do that now. I'm putting that on my honorable mention list because it should be. Roseanne thought my number 1 was The Big Lebowski. Jen thought it was number 1. My number 1 movie is actually Memento.
I never would have gotten that.
I love that. That is.
And in 5 minutes, I'll forget it's your number 1.
Just because of the way they shot it, like going back. Oh, dude, that was so cool. So yeah, Memento's number 1. But you hit 14 points, so you got to feel good about yourself. And you made me put Spaceballs on the short list. You had also said Groundhog Day. Again, because I like Bill Murray. That's a totally legitimate guess. Roseanne put as I burp. Love Actually. Love Actually is one of my favorite Christmas movies to watch with Jen every season. Probably not my top 10 overall though. Jen put What About Bob? Again, Bill Murray, and that character reminds me of Jen a little bit. I bought her a shirt that said "Don't hassle me, I'm local," so that's fun. But she also put For the Love of the Game, which I think is one of her favorite movies. It's not a baseball movie, though. Billy Chappell goes out and throws a perfect game, and that's special. And nobody likes Billy Tuttle, and whoever the catcher, John C. Reilly, whoever he is, we don't suck now. Yeah, it's. But my favorite baseball movie is Bull Durham.
I almost said Major League.
Major League probably should have been. It would have been in the top 15, I bet. But she also picked The Godfather. That's fair. But then, she had listed a bunch of ones that were after. And these are movies that, if they come on and, we're watching TV and I leave them on, she groans. Flash Gordon. Oh, I love Flash Gordon. I do. I love Flash Gordon. Any of the Oceans movies. Oceans 11, Oceans 12, Oceans 13, even Oceans 8, I like. And she put Star Wars, one of them, Oceans 11, all of them. So, because I won't turn them off.
Jen was really casting a wide net there, huh?
Yeah, but I only gave her credit for 1 through 5, and actually, Spaceballs was another one that she thought should have been on the list. And I didn't know who was going to do well in that category. So the fourth, this category I put there because I thought Jen needed one that would have helped her, because I didn't think she was going to know anything about sports or video games, quite honestly. I said, what are my top 5 favorite Broadway shows of all time? And here's where, Jen came in with 14. You came in with 10.
Oh,
Roseanne came in with 2. So, and Roseanne is going to be probably upset with some of my list, but that's, wait once. Oh, that's you. Okay. Yeah. Hers. Let me see. Yeah, she's going to be upset, but it is what it is. So my top 5 favorite Broadway shows are weird and wonky. Number 5 is SpongeBob. When I saw SpongeBob with Derek, I was super entertained. We saw SpongeBob and Hamilton on the same weekend. I liked SpongeBob more. The guy they got to play SpongeBob, there was one human in the world who could sing the part and looked and sounded like SpongeBob, and they found him. And Patrick gave me hope that I could someday be on stage, because he was this big burly guy who was goofy looking.
Do you know who voiced Patrick in the cartoon, by the way?
I don't know who voiced Patrick.
Did you watch the TV show Coach, in the 80s and 90s?
Yeah.
Dauber? That's Patrick.
I think Dauber was Patrick as a football coach, too. So
and he was Marshall's dad on How I Met Your Mother.
Yes, he was. There you go. So look at all this pop culture stuff we're getting here. Um, Number four, I don't think anybody besides Jen got, and I don't think anybody would have gotten. We just saw this on Sunday up in Hershey. Beetlejuice. Awesome. Did you even know it was a show?
It's Lauren Boebert's favorite show.
Oh,
If you know that whole scandal.
there you go. Not for that reason, but yeah, Beetlejuice is a really cool show. That's my number four. Number three, nobody got my number three. Jen didn't even get my number three, which really surprised me because we saw it together.
Got a divorce.
Jersey Boys.
Oh, I can see that now that you say it.
Really cool show. My number two. So Jen and I did an impromptu trip to New York City for my birthday. We're sitting at dinner and we're like, yeah, let's go. So we went and we asked my mother-in-law, can you watch Derek? Because Marie wasn't born at the time. Yeah, I'll watch Derek for the weekend. Cool. We have to go home and pack and get train tickets. We just went to New York. It was awesome to see a different show that I'm going to talk about. But we saw Jersey Boys as well. And I thought, man, this is awesome. I really dig this. So yeah, Jersey Boys is my number three. The other show that we watched that weekend is my number two. And you and Roseanne, I totally get not even having this on your radar. Jen picked this as number one, An Act of God. It was a one-man show by Jim Parsons. And
okay. Now it rings a bell.
So Jim Parsons is Jim Parsons, but God comes down and takes his form and does like a 90 to 120 minute monologue about the world. And like, this is what's going on. And it was just, I've never been more entertained, I don't think, by one person. And part of it was, part of it is me associating Jim Parsons with Sheldon Cooper and Sheldon Cooper's similarities to my son Derek, where like I look at Jim Parsons as, if you can be successful, so can Derek. And I sat in the audience just in awe of looking at Jim Parsons. I might have cried a little bit just because of how he played Sheldon and how Sheldon's like my son. But it was still an super entertaining show, really. My number one though, nobody got. Oh no, you got my number one. Jen had it outside of her top five, so she didn't get credit for it. My favorite musical of all time is Wicked, and it's really because of.
I'm surprised Phantom wasn't on there.
Phantom makes the Phantom. Let me get through Wicked first. Wicked takes the heel of the Wizard of Oz, and spoiler alert if you haven't seen it, but it's been out for 30 years, so it's on you. It takes the heel of the Wizard of Oz and shows the backstory and how she's not really the heel, and then when she dies, she doesn't really die. And when she comes back and her love interest get together, when I saw that the first time, I think I did get emotional. Like I cry a lot because I'm a big baby, but like I had to hold back the like, I'm so happy. That was and like, you know what? Like, it feels weird saying this as like the big macho sports guy, but like that Broadway show got me emotional. So like that, it's going to take a lot to beat that as number one. Phantom, I think, has some of the toughest banger music in the first act. The second act, I get lost and I get kind of bored.
I'm not a big Andrew Lloyd Webber guy.
But the beginning, oh dude, the music of the night and the Phantom theme, when I saw that for the first time live with my parents, the bass in that like shook my core, and I thought, oh my gosh, this is awesome. But then the second act was like, it was decidedly meh for me. So that's why I didn't make the top five. My other honorable mention, I don't know if Jen got this. Maybe she should have. Oh no, this was she picked this as my number two. And I actually have this graphic here. Like, let's get this up here. Who knows Max the best? The guy that's with Jen and I, he played Dracula in Dracula. So like, oh, there it is. There's Tim, Jen, and Roseanne.
It would be weird if he played Dracula in like any other show. Like if he was Dracula in Wicked, it would be like, what are you doing here?
Doesn't make sense. No, so so Dracula would have been an honorable mention. And so then I tallied up all the scores, and I thought, well, what if there's a tie? I'm going to have a tiebreaker list. So in all of the scoring, I said, I'm going to take your total points and I'm going to subtract your lowest score. So that, like, because you didn't know Broadway, so I'll get that out. Jen doesn't know sports, we'll get that out. Roseanne doesn't know, whatever, we'll get that out. So it's kind of fair. Tim, I'm sorry to tell you, you came in third. You scored 62. Roseanne came in second with 78, and I think that was largely based on her knowledge of candy and the extra knowledge of board games. And Jen came in with 122.
She doubled my score.
Out of 300. But it's out of 300. So this is where I thought, well, let's do the tiebreaker. And Tim, you actually won the tiebreaker. So we'll make you feel a little bit better here. So tiebreaker question was, honestly, I'd be surprised if anybody scores a point here. What would be the top 5 things on my bucket list that I do not ever truly envision happening? But if they did, everybody here on the list would be somewhat happy, and it's not going to yuck anybody's yum, is how I put it.
I remember 2 of my answers, and I felt good about them.
So some of the, again, I went with, I don't think these are ever going to happen. So you and Roseanne both picked go to see a game in Ann Arbor. That's a realistic bucket list item that's going to happen. That's good. I'll check that off.
I truly feel like you and I should make a trip to Ann Arbor.
Yeah, I don't think that's going to be a hard thing. You had also said visit Italy. That's going to be something that happens. Jen wants to do that, so that's again a bucket list item that will happen eventually. Then you went with create a national line of board games. I you know what? Making a board game is hard. Like, I'm actually trying to make a football version of Lords of Baseball. Dude, I don't know if I can do it. So making a national line, yeah, I would love to do that, but I think that's doable. And then the next one is just, I mean, you're just being goofy here. Producing the reboot of Silk Stockings.
The best softcore pornography on TV in the early 90s.
Because
Thank you, USA Network.
The world needs the first 5 minutes of that show again, especially on USA. But here's where you would have won, because this actually kind of sort of made the list. You said wrestle in front of a WWE audience. That pretty much made the list. So good for you. You picked one off.
All right.
Roseanne came in number 2 with the bucket list. She said see all the baseball parks. I think that's real. That didn't make my list, and I think that's a very difficult but realistic goal.
Because teams keep changing parks.
Yeah. She said something about our daughter, getting healthy with something. Okay, that's going to happen. Jen stopped checking things. That's really more of a Jen thing. Beating Joey Chestnut. That's not even on my list. That's so unrealistic. And wait till you hear some of the things that made my list. Like,
no one should try to beat Joey Chestnut. Hot dogs are basically poison in food form. They're so bad for you, but they taste so good.
But where she would have come in number 2, throwing an opening pitch. I think that's oh no, that was Jen. Oh no, it was Jen. Oh, Roseanne. Oh yeah, so Jen picked all the baseball parks. Maria off her Miralax. Her stopping checking. That's more of her thing. Throwing an opening pitch. Yeah, that would have made that gave Jen number 3. Roseanne said winning the lottery. I don't play the lottery, so that's hard. Going to a Michigan game live. Again, that's realistic. We're going to do that someday. Going to a Super Bowl live.
I don't know. That sound appealing to me.
I mean, especially if the Bears aren't there. And even if the Bears are there, that might be worse.
Like, the sightline you would have at a live Super Bowl are going to be so bad. I would rather, order a problematic amount of food and watch it at home.
And she said, sitting in Yankee Stadium during Game 4 of the World Series, where they win in 4 games. So I think she was going for seeing a clinching sweep at Yankee Stadium. I remember back to 2000. I'm a senior in college. The Yankees are playing the Mets, and for some reason, I'm on one of these sports websites, and I clicked on a link that said buy tickets. to Game 1, and I saw tickets for Game 1 of the World Series for $500. And I had some money that was like, I'm in college. Like, I just had a couple bucks from working over the summers and whatever. And I gave very serious consideration to buying tickets for me and my dad to go to a World Series game. And I didn't, because $500 was a lot of money back then. And I thought to myself, I always think to myself, though, like, am I going to get another chance to do this? Like, so if they make the World Series this year, that's a maybe, but I don't know if it's going to be Game 4. I remember actually going to New York. I was on Long Island with a friend of mine for Game 1, and her dad was a big Yankee fan, and I remember sitting watching with him. And when Paul O'Neill worked the walk against Benitez, like he didn't know me, I didn't know him. We're hugging each other. It was awesome. So getting to Yankee Stadium for a World Series game, yeah, maybe. But
and I don't think this is a story you know about me, but one of those answers, I had the offer. This would have been back in 2014 to throw out a first pitch at a professional baseball game. Williamsport Crosscutters asked me, but also a little fun fact about me: I have a partially torn labrum in my right shoulder.
Let it go lefty then.
And I can't throw. I can throw faster with my left hand, but I can't throw with any accuracy.
Gotcha. Well,
like I mean, I can fire a seed, but I don't know where it's going. I'm like Randy Johnson when he played for the Expos.
You couldn't be any worse than 50 Cent when he did it. So.
Or Baba Booey.
So my list, I have a list of 8, and in no discernible order, because honestly, if any of these happen to be kind of neat, 2 of them kind of go together, and this is where you would have won. I would just like to do a back bump in a pro wrestling ring, just to say, like, yeah, I did a bump, and or get booed by a sellout crowd in a pro wrestling ring. Like, I want to say something so offensive to a group of people that they boo me.
You know my love of Ric Flair. That would be rad as hell.
But for me, it's a different Rick. It's Rick Rude. Like, let me tell you, all of you Bloomsburg beer-bellied pigs. Like,
but then you got to flash your abs.
Well, that would be a great reason for me to get booed. Who am I to talk to you about, So
you want to see what peak male fitness looks like?
Exactly. I think, and this is where, like, I often fantasize about what I would have done with Derek Jeter's 3,000th hit. Like, if I was the guy that caught that home run, how much money would I have held out for? It would have been zero. There's 2 things that I'd really like to do. One, I would like to attempt to bunt a live 4-seam fastball from a major league pitcher, because I'm convinced I could get it down fair. And
Me
2,
too.
I would like to.
The delusion of our 40s?
It's not delusion. I couldn't get a hit if I'm trying to swing.
Right,
I'm not fouling a pitch off. Let's get that straight. But if I'm squared, if I could bunt the way Coach Martasio taught me, shout out Bob Sporting Goods, I could get a bunt down.
I was the best bunter on Pioneer Fire Company, by the way.
There you go.
Circa 1990.
The other one, I would ask. I just want to run the bases at Yankee Stadium. Like, before a game, after a game, if the Yankees are out west, just let me run the bases and just say I did, because that seems like that'd be a cool experience to me. I don't know why.
I also had the opportunity to run the bases at Fenway. This would have been in 2010. At the end of the season, they had a thing where you could buy a ticket for a certain price, and they were like, after the game, you can come out, be on the field, you can take a blade of grass if you want, you can run the bases.
And you didn't run the bases because you were just an old man and like all the kids were doing it?
No.
I wouldn't care. I'd be out there doing it.
I don't know how specific I want to be. I was married to a certain individual who was like, "You're not going to Boston."
Oh, you didn't go to the game. I got you.
Yeah.
No, okay. No, I
thought
you were
we'll
there
say about that.
Like, I've been at Pittsburgh games where it's like kid day and the kids come down and run. But like, yeah.
No, it was my former editor when I worked at the paper who was like, "I've got these tickets. Do you want to come? We can run the bases." And then I had to see like the pictures on Facebook, and I was like, "That could have been me."
Could have been me. Yeah, the kid in me would like to do that. The next thing, and this comes strictly from what I've one of my favorite TV shows, a couple of my favorite TV shows, watching The West Wing, watching House of Cards, watching the TV show Scandal, and I didn't go high. I win a seat on the U.S. Senate because the lifetime of healthcare would be nice, but I don't think I could do any worse. So I put that as number 4 on my list as something that's never going to happen, but yeah, it'd be cool.
I feel like I could win like at least maybe like a state Senate seat.
So, I mean, you got to start somewhere. So
I'm a reasonably smart person.
I'm not. So that's why not
even better.
That's not going to happen. I need a really good staff. Number 3, and this is where I think you got it because of the wrestling. Roseanne would have gotten the second thing because she said her thing was sportscaster on ESPN. I said broadcast a pro sports game, like doing play-by-play. Like I've been able to do a couple play-by-play games for my local high school, and that's like it reinvigorated. And doing this podcast too, it's just like it reinvigorated my liking of talking about sports and just doing this kind of broadcast stuff.
We both love inflicting our opinions on people,
and it's fun to me. But again, even if I was not broadcasting a team that I like, so not Michigan, not the Yankees, the closest team to me would be the Phillies or maybe Penn State football. It's still like an hour and a half, 2 hours away. It's just not likely to happen where I am, and that's fine. I'm totally cool with that. The next two, I mean, this next one right here, I really have zero shot. I would love to star in a Hollywood movie. I liked acting back in the day. And, when Jen does her musicals, I got to be up on stage. She did Grease, and I was the angel that came down and sang. Me and like 3 other teachers, like we're the singers. And just being on stage is cool. And it would be interesting to do it in front of a camera, which would be different. It's like doing this, like we have a camera here. But I'd like to be, and not like, I don't have to be the star. So if you look at Goodfellas, who was like the lead actor? I think it was Leota because he did all the voiceover, right?
He was third billed, but Leota was
I could handle being a supporting actor, like the De Niro or the Pesci, and yeah, I just compared myself to De Niro and Pesci.
I would like to be the guy who played Maury because like everyone remembers that guy. What else has he done? He was in an episode of The Sopranos. That's me. I would like to be the memorable
the Jewish guys in The Sopranos, right?
Yeah. He says to Tony Soprano, "You're a golem. I've created a golem." That's me. I'm
his hair can withstand hurricane winds. Yeah, so star in a Hollywood movie, and then my number 1. I hate to say it's a regret, but it's kind of a regret. I have scored 3 2-point conversions in my life, so I've scored 6 points, but I never scored a touchdown. I would like a real, honest to goodness, like not a like Michigan spring game. Here comes 90-year-old Max. Let's like let him run in the end zone. Like a legitimate bowl my head down and score a 1-yard touchdown run.
Let's call the Make-A-Wish Foundation, see if they can make that happen for you.
I'm convinced I could get 1 yard in the NFL too. If you give me the best offensive line in football and I run like a fullback dive, I can get a yard. As long as the linebackers aren't blitzing, like if they're just playing back, like it's 3rd and 60, yeah, we'll give Max. He can get 2 yards.
Another fun fact, and obviously it was not in a game situation, but I have caught a touchdown at Penn State on their media day.
Yeah. Oh no! I remember you did doubles as a reporter once. You were a quarterback though.
Well, so I was a quarterback, but I also got to play linebacker. I got to return a punt, which I never did when I actually played. Catching a punt, by the way, is the scariest thing that's ever happened to me in my life.
Our senior year,
11 people chasing after you while you're just fixated on an object in the sky. Golly, that is terrifying.
When half of our team went to Camp Canadensis and we were back, like I was returning punts. Yeah, you're not wrong. That's absolutely terrifying. So, yeah. So as far as Mr. Smarty Pants goes, Jen is Mr. Smarty Pants as far as trivia questions.
I salute
But
Miss Smarty. Sorry, Mrs. Smarty Pants.
Ms. Smarty Pants. So, but I'm going to give you a chance for redemption, and I have a good feeling about this, actually.
Okay.
So, I saw a video that did this, and I thought it would be fun to duplicate it with you, as long as you can see the screen. So, right now, you got to be able to see the screen.
Oh, I got to put my glasses on.
So, can you see our pictures right there? Is
Yes.
that clear enough? Okay.
Yes.
So, what I'm going to do, and anyone watching at home, you can race Tim to see if you can get the answer before him, because I really think Tim's going to go 10 for 10 here. At least I hope he does. What I'm going to do, I'm going to put up a picture of a series of helmets. Your job is to analyze the helmets from left to right and see which quarterback's career has gone in that direction. So all of these are quarterbacks. Okay. All right. We're going to start easy.
Brady. Yeah.
There you go. So you get the idea. He started in New England, went to Tampa Bay, and there's touchdown Tommy. Okay, now they're going to get, I don't know, they're going to get slightly more difficult.
Also, I will say these are bifocals. Elvis Gerbach?
Maybe. Not who I was going for, though.
Steve Bono? He went from San Francisco to Kansas City.
Again.
Oh, Montana, obviously.
There you go. So that's who I was going for. You may have very well been right.
I was going super obscure.
No, these are the lists I came up with. So some of them are obscure, but most of them you should be able to know. Like,
Favre.
And this was like, one of my least favorite. And there's my favorite picture of Brett Favre after his interception with the Vikings.
Yeah, keep fleecing Mississippi. That's Kurt Warner.
Kurt Warner, you are 4 for 4 with some extra trivia in there. Elvis Gerbach.
That's not Cunningham, is it?
It most certainly is.
I didn't realize he went to Baltimore.
I didn't either. So, I mean, this is all thanks to ProFootballReference.com. So they had him listed as in Baltimore. So yeah, there it is. Randall Cunningham. Good. 5 for 5, man.
Pride of the Running Rebels. That's Harbaugh.
Yep. And so part of the Jim thing also was like, dude, I could totally do this. I didn't realize Jim Harbaugh played for the Ravens. I knew he was a Charger, but
yeah. After Marcia Broda went from Indianapolis to Baltimore, yeah, Harbaugh followed.
So our next one, a little trickier now.
Whew. Oh, Cousins.
See, I threw a current one in there at you. I don't know if you, because I'm so far in the past now with Randall Cunningham and Jim Harbaugh and Brett Favre. Okay,
can I just tell you how much I hate Kirk Cousins because he was an absolute Eagles killer? Okay, let's see here.
This is a big one.
To Rams to Chiefs back to Eagles. Oh, that's Foles.
Yeah, there you go. A little bit
BDN. I won't say what that stands for. This is a family podcast.
Little Super Bowl champ there for you. You are perfect right now. How about this guy?
That's Testaverde.
Yeah, I think I just deliberately went with the old school Bucks helmet to try to help you there because I figure if I went with the pewter helmet, it wouldn't be fair because he wore the old one. There it is, Vinny.
Italian for green pastures.
I think there's 2 more.
Okay.
I think. Oh no, this is the last one. So you're 9 for 9.
Oh, that's Warren Moon.
10 for 10, Mr. Smarty Pants. There you go.
The pride of our opponent today played standout at the University of Washington, UW.
There you go. So I had complete and total faith that you went 10 for 10. I'd be interested to see if anybody beat your time because you're pretty good. Aside from the Joe Montana one where you went with Steve Bono.
Well, because I thought you were going to go more obscure. I can take off my Edna Mode glasses now.
I mean, if I pulled out somebody like I don't know, like the Carolina Panthers to the New York Giants, and he might have went somewhere else. Like
I thought you were going with Gerbach because of the Michigan connection.
I got you.
Yeah.
Yeah, no. So there it is. Hey, 10 for 10. Good list, bud. Good job. So,
Smarty pants. Let's see how Jen does on that.
probably not very good. She would go 0 for 10. I'm not even sure she'd get Tom Brady. She knows some Steelers quarterbacks, though. I don't. Yeah, if I would have just put like one Steelers helmet there, like that would have been dumb. Like
But you married her anyway.
Ben Roethlisberger or Terry Bradshaw. Okay, so I did put one of these together. If you
Okay.
wanted to do this,
Absolutely.
and I'm going to see if you can come up with the category after you get your list. So I
Okay.
have the A B C D E just like you did,
Yep.
and 1 2 3 4 5 is up to you. So where would you like to start? A, B, C, D, or E?
I'm a middle of the road kind of guy. Let me start with C.
C is Funko Pops. You know what a Funko Pop is?
My bookshelf that I'm looking at right now is lousy with Funko Pops.
There you go. So you know what they are.
Yes. I do love Funko Pops. I'll go 4.
4. Okay. So Funko Pops are off the list. So now we need A, B, D, or E.
I'll go B.
B. B is starting lineup figures.
Oh, I love starting lineups a little more than Funko Pops. I'll go 3.
True starting lineups. Cool. Okay. A, D, E.
I'll go A. Alan, are you mad?
A is Lego sets.
I have fond memories of playing with Legos with the kids when they were little, but they aren't a big part of my life now. I'll go 5 for Lego.
5 is Lego. Okay. So now we're down to D and E.
I'll go. Give me that easy E.
E is random assorted pictures.
And what numbers do I have left? I have
1
1.
and 2.
Ugh. I'll go 2.
2 is random assorted pictures, which means you've indirectly picked your number 1, which I think is a fair number 1. Your number 1 is bobbleheads.
Okay, I'm happy with that list.
So your list: bobbleheads, random assorted pictures, starting lineup figures, Funko Pops, and Lego sets. Do you have any idea what your category was this week?
Collectibles.
Close. My category, the idea was random things you might find on my desk.
So I feel like my answer is accurate.
Lego sets. I have Funko Pops, starting lineup figures. The bobblehead. Oh, the bobblehead's actually on the shelf, so that didn't make it. Didn't make it here. And I have, random assorted pictures that are sitting around here. So,
and I'll give you a tour of my Funko bobbleheads.
You got some Spider-Man?
I've got some Spider-Man, Conan
There you
O'Brien,
go.
Magneto.
Ooh. Yeah. Oh, I don't. Where are you? Ah, there. This is, as far as random Legos go. This is a really cool. He's not a natural Lego. He's like an off-brand number 5 Yankee. I have a Joe DiMaggio Lego minifig, but he's off-brand. He's not Lego official.
By the way, can I just, and I'll tie this back into the Jimmy Carter thing. I saw a great idea this week. I wish I had this idea, but I have to give credit to someone else who floated the idea on Twitter. So on Legos, you know how it says ages 1 to 99?
1 to 99, yeah, because Jimmy Carter can't play with them anymore.
Someone said,
Neither could Betty White, almost.
We should make a Lego set where you build like a Lego house with a little Jimmy Carter figurine, and all the proceeds go to Habitat for Humanity.
Yeah, that would be nice.
I think that's a beautiful idea, and I think look, Carter was not a great president, but he's a beautiful man who's done so much for humanity.
I'm beyond the works of Habitat for Humanity. Yeah, that would be an interesting Lego set too, because like you're building a house and Yeah, that would be.
And
I
like
could get down with
honestly, like we both grew up super Catholic. Like Jimmy Carter embodies the form of Christianity that I would love to adhere to. I wish I could live a life as virtuous as that guy.
There's still time. I mean, we.
Well,
You think
I
You
might
think
die
we'll get to
as soon as we
100? I
go off
mean,
the air.
I'm not even. I'm not halfway to 100. So if I'm hoping to get there first, like we'll baby step to 50 before we worry about 100.
50. We'll see. I lived my 30s were a hard 30.
Well, we banged through two. We're almost at 3 hours here today, and I think largely, the quizzes go a little bit longer. So that's the fun stuff that the people tune in for, though. So overall, it's a good hanging out with you and
Maybe our
shooting
best
the breeze.
episode yet.
Um, I think so we already did this for you. If Roseanne came up with like a bunch of questions for us to answer, I'm not sure I'd get to 68. I really don't. Like if we had answered the same questions about her, like, so I hope she doesn't feel bad. I mean, you don't feel bad. Like I just randomly threw out stuff that I like, and I don't talk a lot about liking Wicked or like crying at a Broadway show, especially with you and Roseanne, because that's like, why would I tell you about my crying aside from right now? But
to share with our 7 listeners.
I don't think anybody out there knows that I wanted to run the bases at Yankee Stadium, or I would trade Derek Jeter's home run ball for 4 things: run the bases at Yankee Stadium, live batting practice where I can try to bunt a 4-seam fastball. I'd like to play catch with Bernie Williams, just or Don Mattingly, or like one of my old favorites, and
Rick Cerrone, if you're watching.
Rick Cerrone, I have my glove. Just show up, or just a bunch of really cool. Like they would obviously autograph them if they can, but like my area here, like I have pictures all over my room, and I'm a big moment guy. Like I have a picture right there, like where my computer is, like what I'm looking at. David Cohn getting carried off the field is perfect game, meaningful to us. I have a picture of Mariano Rivera throwing the last pitch at Old Yankee Stadium at 11:41, 7-3 win over the Orioles. And Derek Jeter had been taken out of the game, so the backup shortstop is in this picture, so it's kind of weird. But like, I think my parents got that for me for Christmas. It might have been like a $50 picture. If Mariano Rivera signs it, it's a $5,000 picture. I don't need like a bunch of autograph stuff, just like but cool pictures of like Yankee moments. I would hope for.
That's where I am with there, because I'm a huge Marvel fan, obviously from the bobbleheads, and we've talked about my abiding love for Brian Dawkins, who's also a Marvel fan. And there's a splash page, which if you know comics, you know what a splash page is. But Marvel made a splash page of Dawkins and Wolverine coming out of the tunnel at the link.
Weapon X connection.
And if I could get Brian Dawkins to autograph that, I would die a happy man.
Let's get that working. So if you've hung with us here for 2 hours and 43 minutes watching on YouTube, and Brian Dawkins, please reach out to us. We have an Instagram account. We have an email account. We have, all kinds of ways you can reach us either on Facebook or on YouTube. I think college football has already started, but
15 minutes first pitch and go Huskies.
Yeah. So
not the Washington Huskies, by the way.
Oh yeah. You had me for a second. You had me at the first half. Texas A&M currently with a 10-0 lead over Missouri. You heard it here first. And Alabama kicks off in 4 hours. They already have a 7-0 lead. So I'm sure my dad will be happy about that one. But have a good week. Hopefully we get the rundown a little bit earlier so we know what we're doing before, like 2 hours before showtime.
Yeah, that we don't share panic texts on a Thursday.
What are we going to talk about? So people out in the internet world, have a good one. We'll see you after later. Like and subscribe, all the happy stuff. And